In the control room, once all the Magitech equipment was active, Joe walked over to Headmaster Danton. He spoke in a low, serious voice. You must guarantee the safety of every human guest. Not a single one of them can die. As for the traitors, kill any you can. The family has no more use for them. Of course I know that, Headmaster Danton said, pulling a heavy lever. A deep, rumbling sound echoed from the depths of the castle. On the magical projections, they saw the ritual chamber begin to tremble violently. The expressions of every vampire turned to shock. Then, something incredible happened. Leo watched as the room's structure deformed like a three-dimensional puzzle box. Space inverted. The elder vampires frantically took flight, while the human guests tumbled in an orderly fashion toward the ceiling. But they didn't slam into it. Instead, bathed in an eerie glow, they were teleported wholesale through a suddenly opened portal into another room dozens of yards away. Danton grinned. Remember the portal at the foot of the mountain that brought you up? The castle is full of them. He gestured to the control panel. As long as I'm in here, I can control most of the rooms in this castle and all of its traps. Those old vampires are dead men walking. As he spoke, Leo watched the projections. The elder vampires, anxiously searching room by room for the human guests, were now caught in a death trap. Many were shunted by teleportation traps into rooms filled with lethal surprises. In one, Ethereum crystals detonated with such force that the vampires were annihilated before they could even dissolve into a blood mist. In another, the walls began to contract, crushing the trapped vampires into bloody pancakes under an unstoppable, horrific force. And then there was one that was just plain absurd. Leo saw several elder vampires trapped in a narrow corridor. Suddenly, panels in the walls slid open to reveal rows of spinning barrels glowing with blue fire. Under a torrent of silver-glowing bullets, any elder vampire who dared to show their face was instantly turned into Swiss cheese. Holy shit, a Gatling gun. Leo's jaw hung open at the sight. It's the Army's last-generation hand-cranked repeating firearm, loaded with mithril-laced bullets, blessed by holy light, Danton said, looking at him strangely. What's a Gatling? Nothing. Leo watched the vampires howl in agony and looked at the headmaster with newfound admiration. You are a true artist of annihilation. Danton gazed at his masterpiece with pride. This, I believe, is why Duke Victor never dared to truly defy the Empire. I think mystery and the supernatural are relics of the past. This is the age of Magitech industry. This is our age, the age of humanity. The times, they are a-changin', Leo silently concluded. He looked back at the screens, a thought solidifying in his mind. If this was all a setup orchestrated by the Duke, then he could guess the man's intentions. The entire family had reached a breaking point. It had to be torn down to be rebuilt. The Duke was old, on the verge of death. Perhaps he wanted to go out with a bang. If he didn't deal with these problems for his descendants, his successors would inevitably be crushed by the powerful elder vampires. He wanted to clear the board for them completely. And contacting the secret envoys from the church, that felt more like a delay tactic. The Duke had to die at the most opportune moment to send all the elder vampires to their doom in one fell swoop. Professor, Leo asked, a note of uncertainty in his voice, your father, is he really dead? He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the Duke's death. If this was a grand play, wouldn't the director want to be there for the final act? To see the chaos settled, everything brought to a close, and a successor emerge from the ashes? He laid out all his thoughts for Evelyn. She was silent for a long time before she finally spoke. Of course he's dead. That was the one thing she could be sure of. The Duke is indeed dead. Joe's voice came from nearby. He didn't turn around, which is why you young people must now shoulder the family's responsibilities. Now, Evelyn's eyes flickered. If it's really as you say, if this was all my father's plan, then how do we explain today? What will the guests and the king think? The Abraham family really did collude with the See of Siston with treasonous intent. That part is a fact. That, Leo thought of Ophelia's father, that profoundly, terrifyingly sharp ruler of the empire. That I don't know. But there was one thing he knew for sure. A new successor could be chosen today. His gaze quietly shifted to the silent Monica. It seemed Joe was in on the Duke's plan, and Joe was secretly protecting Monica. A low-key, intelligent young vampire with a pure bloodline and considerable talent. So she was the Duke's true chosen successor. The realization left a sour taste in Leo's mouth. Because in the banquet hall today, the one who had bravely stood up was Evelyn. At the Abraham family's darkest hour, she was the only one who unexpectedly took responsibility who tried to rally the younger generation, who had repeatedly thrown herself into danger. He didn't dislike Monica, but for her to suddenly emerge now, it felt like she was swooping in to steal the credit. He couldn't help but feel a sense of resentment. Meanwhile, on the other side of the castle, outside the main gates, the torrent of magic continued to pound against the defensive wards. The massive, ethereal blue formation was growing dimmer, but Mez and the other elder vampires could do nothing about the powerful witch outside. They could only pace inside the castle, stewing in their anxiety. Tilly wasn't paying them any mind. She was still in magical communication with Ophelia back in the capital. So that's how it is, she murmured, a thoughtful expression on her face as she listened. This is a play to select the Abraham family successor. Tilly was still skeptical. Ophelia, we still have no idea what's happening inside that castle. For you to deduce all this from just a few clues, isn't that a bit of stretch? Ophelia's long legs were propped lazily on her desk, making herself more comfortable. She took a sip of the coffee Carolyn had just handed her and said leisurely, I don't know what's happening inside, that's true. But there's one fact you should be clear on. No matter what, today is the day a successor is to be announced. You mean? Tilly stared at her. Whether the Duke's death is real or fake, whether he had a designated heir or not, in the chaos of today, whichever direct descendant can quell the turmoil and turn the tide will, by right, be the true successor of this family. A calculating glint flashed in Ophelia's eyes. What do you think of Evelyn? Evelyn, Tilly hadn't expected this. You're planning to push her into the seat of the Duke of Thornwood. Of course, Ophelia said with a smile. She's of the direct bloodline, isn't she? And her talent isn't bad. Aside from being a bit greedy, a bit lazy, and a bit too fond of good food, I think Leo's professor is perfectly fine in all other aspects. But most importantly, she added suddenly, she's one of us. With such a huge power vacuum in the north, it's better to have it in our hands. Yep, Tilly suddenly laughed. And you say you have no treasonous ambitions. You've already picked out your supporters for after you take the throne. Isn't this what you told me back then? Ophelia shot her a sideways glance. Who was it that came to me all excited, saying she was dissatisfied with the state of the world, spouting nonsense about dominators and building a beautiful new world? Tilly's eyes instantly lit up. It seems you've agreed, then? As if I have a choice. Ophelia snorted. That woman is practically at our gates. For what I can see, I'm not even sure you could beat her now. Ah, Tilly said dismissively. That hypocrite, that preachy, sanctimonious fraud. How could she possibly beat me? That's not for you to decide, Ophelia said, shaking her head. No one knows what she's been doing all this time. To be honest, I'm wary of her now, too. Let's not worry about her for now, Tilly said, suddenly sensing a strange magical aura emanating from deep within the castle. You said you want to prop up Evelyn. Does Evelyn herself know about this? Did you get her consent? A slight smile played on Ophelia's lips. That's not up to her. Inside the castle, the Magitech machinery continued to run without pause. Leo stared at the various scenes on the magical projections. Headmaster Danton's mad torture had been going on for over 10 minutes. Each elder vampire was being forced through a deadly gauntlet, suffering heavy casualties amidst their unending screams. They couldn't even escape. The castle was enveloped by a powerful magical ward, a ward that was now also under Dan's control. The elders had dug their own graves. Seeing the tables finally turn, everyone in the control room breathed a sigh of relief. Only Leo's expression remained worried. It was too early to pop the champagne. Danton's massive Magitech system was a huge energy hog. There was no telling how long it could last. And the most powerful of the elders, the 7 or 8 prince-level vampires led by Mez, were still alive. His other concern was the church delegation. Where had they gone? The entire conspiracy had begun with the See of Sistun, with Priestess Philine and Bishop Lawrence as the executors. As long as those two remained hidden, this whole affair was a ticking time bomb. Keep a close eye on the guests, Joe reminded Danton. The strongest of them have gone after them. Don't worry, the headmaster said, his eyes glued to the projections. Just as the few remaining elder vampires were about to burst into the room where the human guests were hiding, a portal opened again before the guests' terrified eyes. Leo glanced at another screen. The human guests had been sent back to the original banquet hall. The Duchess stared at them in shock, and Mike and the other young vampires who hadn't joined the rebellion looked equally stunned. What's going on? Why are you back? The Duchess asked frantically. Has anyone seen Emily? Has anyone seen my daughter? The human guests were still in a state of shock, and no one answered her. Emily probably went to find Monica, Mike said, trying to comfort his mother. She loves following her big sister Monica around. I'm sure they're fine together. How could they possibly be fine? The elders have gone blood mad. The Duchess grew more anxious by the second. What are you doing just standing there? Go find your sister. Oh, right. Mother, don't worry, I'll go right now. My turn to leave. But just then, an old voice echoed through the banquet hall. Emily is fine. She's with me, along with Monica and Evelyn. Everyone looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. In the control room, Joe watched the screen and continued to speak. The castle is under our control. Please wait patiently. In a short while, the family traitors who murdered the master will all be executed. A wave of astonished murmurs spread through the banquet hall. The birthday banquet had taken one bizarre turn after another, and the current developments were beyond anyone's imagination. All members of the Abraham family, remember the rules of 2 generations of masters. We are the vampires of Thornwood Castle in the northern territory of Wigner, not the vampires of the city of Cain. The privileged life you all enjoy was built by the hard work of those 2 masters. Some of you young ones were misled by the family traitors. For that, I could turn a blind eye. But from this moment on, if you harbor any improper thoughts, the Abraham family will consider you an enemy, to be hunted to the death. After saying his piece, Joe had Danton turn off the broadcast, then began giving quiet instructions to Monica. When this is over, you will be the one to appease the guests. Don't worry about the younger vampires. Besides me, there will be 3 prince-level vampires backing you. I understand, Uncle Joe. Monica nodded softly. Oh. Headmaster Danton had figured it out. So you're the successor the Duke chose. You were so quiet before, little lady. I never would have guessed. Joe patted Monica's shoulder encouragingly. The Duke has been observing the direct bloodline of this generation for a long time. Monica's talent may not be the most outstanding, but she is clever and prudent in her actions. Of course, he left the second half of his thought unsaid. The truth was, there was hardly anyone to choose from in the Abraham family's next generation. Even including the descendants from branch families, few were worth a damn. Only Evelyn's talent was notable, but because of what happened back then. Nearby, Leo was eavesdropping on their conversation. If everything went smoothly, once the rebellious elders were dealt with, someone would have to take charge. This arrangement was tantamount to forcibly installing Monica on the throne. Professor. Leo looked silently at Evelyn. Her expression was completely unreadable. What is it? Evelyn asked. Professor, have you really never thought about it? About becoming the next Duke of Thornwood? Leo asked tentatively. To say I've never thought about it wouldn't be entirely true. Evelyn mused. I used to back when I was still in the family. That was many years ago. But then you became disillusioned with the family. Leo finished for her. Evelyn nodded, then looked at him with curiosity. Leo, why do you ask? Do you want me to fight for that position? Honestly, I think you're a lot better than them, Leo said, speaking his mind. He wasn't just being partial to someone he cared for. Evelyn genuinely possessed a remarkable quality she probably hadn't even noticed herself. But father already made his choice, Evelyn said, glancing toward Monica. She's very capable, too. Isn't this fine? She's nowhere near as good as you, Leo muttered, pouting slightly. Leo, I know what you're thinking, Evelyn said with a smile. You don't have to feel sorry for me. I have absolutely no interest in that position anymore. Besides, I've already chosen to leave the Abraham family, haven't I? But that woman is about to steal your spotlight. Helena, half in her humanoid form, slithered over. She glared at Monica, grumbling with dissatisfaction. Though she and Evelyn fought constantly, he lost count of how many sofas they destroyed. She had, without realizing it, come to accept the vampire. Ever since her brother had returned, the 3 of them had spent most of their time together. At some point, Evelyn had become a part of their lives, like family. So, in Helena's simple, straightforward mind, the other young vampires were either traitors or cowards hiding in a corner. Monica fell into the latter category. She hadn't stood up when things were most dangerous, but now that everything was settling down, she was being treated like some kind of hero. It infuriated her. She balled her small fists and whispered in her brother's ear, If you ask me, Evelyn is the best choice. Evelyn chuckled and patted her head. Kids shouldn't get involved in adult matters. I'm just happy to see all this family chaos finally coming to an end. When it's over, I'll take you to try some of the specialty foods from the Winter Kingdoms to the north. What kind of food? Helena immediately perked up. Surströmming. Is it good? Helena asked eagerly. It's supposed to be delicious, Evelyn recalled. They say the herring in the can is thick and juicy, and the flavor is exquisite once you open it. The smell is so strong it carries for 100 yards. There's really a delicacy like that? Helena looked skeptical. She'd never heard of it. She glanced at her brother for confirmation. Are you serious, Professor? Leo shot Evelyn a look. Evelyn paused. Well, that's what everyone says. They say it's a taste of heaven. I was too young to eat human food back then. If you want to try it, Leo, the three of us can go together. You two go ahead, Leo said, shaking his head. He had no desire to eat something that smelled like shit and, reportedly, tasted like it too. Come on, brother. Helena wanted to try every delicacy in the world with him. I refuse. Please, brother. As the family debated the merits of canned herring, Monica walked over with a smile. You three are so close. I'm really envious. Helena's smile vanished. Evelyn looked at her teasingly. You and Emily are very close, too. Emily came running over with a grin, hugging Monica's leg and rubbing against it. Of course, big sister Monica likes me the most. Monica looked down with a resigned sigh and patted Emily's little head. Be good and go play. The adults are talking about important things. Emily's face fell, her expression turning pouty. Helena felt a strange sense of déjà vu. Although Uncle Joe has pardoned the younger generation, Monica began, trying to gauge Evelyn's opinion. Lainey and Lyles are the most problematic. Those two won't let this go. The Mez of today is the Lainey and Lyles of tomorrow, Evelyn said with a cold smile. If you ask me, it would be best if they died in Thornwood Castle tonight. Settle it for good. Monica hummed in agreement. That's what I was thinking. The twins harbor a deep hatred for the family. They will never submit to us. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, picking up on a subtle implication in Monica's words. Future Duchess of Thornwood, don't expect me to be your right-hand woman, Evelyn said with a smile. I'm not part of the Abraham family anymore. No, Monica said, looking at her intently. Evelyn, I sincerely hope you'll return to the family. Even when I was little, I always thought you were incredible, and I still do now. Your departure is a great loss for the family. It's too late for that, Evelyn said, taking Leo's hand. Her eyes smiled as she looked at him. I'm happy every single day now. Once today is over, I have no intention of ever returning to this gloomy, God-forsaken place. Monica silently glanced at their intertwined hands, feeling like she'd just been force-fed a rom-com. Stop chatting. Joe suddenly walked over, looking at Monica. The banquet hall is in chaos. We need someone to take charge. It's time for you to make your appearance. Mr. Danton and I will stay here in the control room. Oh, and Evelyn, you go too. Wait, what about Mez? Evelyn asked, cautiously eyeing the magical projections. It's fine, go on, Danton said with a wave of his hand. You'll always be safe with me here. Everything is under control. Then I'm reassured, Monica nodded. Following Joe's instructions, a portal opened and whisked her back to the banquet hall. Next up were Leo and the others. Before leaving, Leo, still uneasy, walked over to Headmaster Danton. How much longer can the castle's Magitech systems run on the current power levels? Headmaster Danton glanced at the energy reserve display. Don't worry, there's plenty. Large sections underneath the castle were hollowed out specifically to store Ethereum crystals. The Duke prepared for this for 10 years. That's good. Leo was about to turn away when Headmaster Danton, his expression changing in an instant, shouted behind him. What's going on? We had half reserve a second ago. Why has it dropped to a fifth? Leo and Evelyn whipped around and saw the energy display flickering erratically. At the same time, everyone in the castle felt the mountain itself give a slight shudder. Is this an earthquake? Emily looked up in alarm. The control room was trembling violently, and the walls felt like they were about to collapse. What's happening? Joe demanded, his face dark as he stared at Danton. No, it's not an earthquake. Danton realized something was wrong and quickly checked the equipment status. When he saw the readings, his face turned black. This is impossible. He spun toward Joe. In that instant, the magical ward was breached from the outside. The ward shares the same power source as the castle's internal systems. It's been suddenly drained. My God, what the hell happened? What? Joe, whose expression was usually unflappable, had his face change color. Leo. Evelyn grabbed his hand as the room shook violently. What is this? Leo looked at the magical projections, which were now crackling with static, many of them quickly disappearing. So, as expected, the unexpected had happened. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. The witch had broken through the castle's magical ward, and everyone knew what that meant. In the rapidly vanishing images, Leo saw Mez, laughing maniacally, surrounded by the surviving prince-level elders. He also saw the stunned expression on Monica's face in the banquet hall, and the cold smiles of Lainey and Lyles hiding in the shadows. Chaos. Absolute chaos. In this grand play, the Duke's meticulously prepared counterplan had been completely shattered by completely oblivious Tilly. The masterminds from the church, the rebellious elder vampires, and Duke Victor himself could never have imagined that a powerful, unforeseen third party would appear at this very moment. Leo almost wanted to laugh. This was too interesting. He certainly wasn't going to blame the witch for her reckless abandon. She was just worried about him. In fact, by sheer accident, she had done him a huge favor. In the chaos of today, whichever successor can turn the tide will, by right, be the true successor of this family. At that moment, Leo hadn't realized that he and Ophelia had arrived at the exact same conclusion. The encirclement of the Empire had already formed, and a war was on the horizon. But the current chaos was also an opportunity, and Leo's only complaint was that he didn't have enough cards in his hand. After a moment's thought, he looked at Danton. The castle's power is about to bottom out. Headmaster, teleport us back to the main hall right now. And yes, you're coming with us. But, Danton looked conflicted, gazing at his pride and joy. What about this place? I feel like it can hold out a little longer. Forget it. You can build another one later. Leo dragged him toward the other portal. If this control room collapses, you'll be trapped in here. As soon as he finished speaking, the room shook again, more violently this time. He had no idea what kind of magic Tilly was using, but it felt like she was trying to bring down the whole mountain. Okay, I get it. A brick nearly brained Headmaster Danton, and he didn't dare argue anymore. Pushed along by Leo, the group rushed toward the portal. In the final moment before they were teleported, Leo shot a quick glance at Evelyn. She was completely bewildered, likely having no idea what he was planning. But from now on, it wouldn't be up to her. Well, he thought, to make it up to Professor Evelyn, I'll just have to let her punish me a little later. When Leo was teleported back to the banquet hall, he was immediately hit by a blast of icy cold. He looked up and saw that not only had the magical ward vanished, but the main tower now had a gaping hole blown through it by Tilly. A fierce wind was whipping snow in through the opening. Everyone was staring up at the perpetrator. The powerful, which looked down from the sky, her mage robes snapping in the wind. A terrifying pressure settled over everyone present. The banquet hall fell silent for a moment, no one knowing the purpose of this uninvited guest. Mez and the other battered elder vampires appeared in the hall. She stared at the figure in the sky. Who in the hell are you? Although this powerful mage had inadvertently saved them by stopping the deadly magitech traps, that was clearly not her intention. The witch merely glanced at her before her eyes moved on, continuing to search the crowd below. Mez's brow furrowed. Another elder vampire, looking thoughtful, sidled up to her. If I recall correctly, she might be the leader of that dark mage organization, the Order of Magical Arcanists. The church calls her Tilly, the Calamity Witch. What? Mez was taken aback. The Order of Magical Arcanists? What are they doing here? When do we ever offend them? How should I know? They muttered, looking up at the hole in the tower. If the ward hadn't absorbed most of the blow, the entire main tower would have been obliterated. They had no idea what the Abraham family had done to Erdorath. As they whispered among themselves, the powerful witch's expression finally changed. Her eyes found a figure in the crowd, and her gaze softened instantly. Leo. Leo was currently helping a shaken Headmaster Danton sit down. The old man was finally feeling his age. Evelyn stood protectively beside them, while Helena waved excitedly at the sky. For some reason, even Helena felt a sense of security now that the witch had appeared. Tilly's figure flickered, and in an instant, she was standing before Leo, her deep violet eyes filled with worry. You're not hurt, are you? She asked urgently. Leo smiled at the long unseen witch. Don't worry, I'm fine. Just completely out of magic. I don't think I'll be casting any more spells for a while. Tilly let out a sigh of relief. I was worried something happened to you inside, so I broke the castle's magical ward. As long as you're okay, that's all that matters. Leave the fighting to me. Evelyn silently glanced at the massive hole in the ceiling, thinking to herself that this was less breaking and more brute force demolition. It seemed that in the face of absolute power, any conspiracy was as fragile as paper. She scanned the banquet hall. All eyes, from every faction, were now focused on them. Tilly's arrival had changed everything. Oh, and one more thing. Tilly's gaze shifted to Evelyn. Ophelia had given her some instructions while she was outside. What's the situation here? Has the Duke's successor been announced yet? Leo glanced at Monica, who was standing nearby, still trying to process what was happening. He pulled Tilly closer and quickly explained what had transpired. I see. Good, as long as one hasn't been chosen yet. Tilly breathed a sigh of relief. Leo looked at her, confused as to why she would say that. Tilly then quietly told him about Ophelia's ambitions and her plan. So she's playing that game too? For a second, Leo could almost see Ophelia's sly, calculating eyes. He couldn't help but smile. Yes, this was exactly the kind of move she would make. So what were her instructions for you? He asked in a low voice. How are you two planning to help Evelyn take power? Isn't it obvious? We just kill all her main competitors while things are chaotic, Tilly replied airily. Right. Leo put a hand to his forehead. A simple, brutal plan. And for the powerful witch, it was indeed something she could easily accomplish. Who's the successor? Her. Tilly turned her emotionless gaze toward Monica. Monica felt as if she'd been targeted by some terrifying predator and couldn't help but shiver. Joe immediately stepped in front of her. Leo, is this mage with you? He asked coldly. Wait. Leo felt like Tilly was about to commit murder on the spot and quickly stopped her. What's wrong? Weren't you looking right at her? Tilly asked, confused. The timing is wrong. Leo shook his head. The window of opportunity was fleeting. If Tilly had been here when the blood moon first rose, when the vampires were killing each other, Ophelia's plan might have worked. But things were different now. Now they needed legitimacy. He had to set the stage for Evelyn. He turned to Evelyn, his smile vanishing, his tone becoming respectful. Miss Evelyn, Leo said. As you can see, all the members of the Abraham family are here. What are your orders? Seeing Leo suddenly act so formal, Evelyn was taken aback. Then she burst out laughing. Leo, what are you talking about? What right do I have to? Miss Evelyn. Leo's voice rose. The Abraham family is fractured. It needs someone to take charge. You are the child the Duke valued most. Leo. Evelyn stared at him suspiciously. Leo quickly winked at her, then pulled Tilly over to stand by her side as backup. Yes. Tilly caught on instantly and slipped into character. Miss Evelyn, just give the order. Whoever you want dead tonight, I will kill them. What? Evelyn had no idea what kind of stage play these two were performing. Just say something. Leo urged her, pulling at her sleeve. You don't want the family to stay in this chaos, do you? Just tell us what you think. Quickly. Oh, Evelyn, completely exasperated, could only look at the expectant faces around her. Well, obviously, it's just as we discussed in the control room. Execute all the family traitors and put an end to this farce. Exactly. That's it. Leo exchanged a look with Tilly and said excitedly, Wherever Miss Evelyn's blade points, there we shall go. Please give the order. Leo and Tilly stood on either side of Evelyn like her loyal generals. The whole scene felt like it was straight out of some power fantasy novel. The classic The King Has Returned moment. Evelyn stared at them, her head full of question marks. She turned to Helena, as if to ask if her brother had lost his mind again. Helena just looked back, equally baffled, her little brain clearly not keeping up. But the hall was already in an uproar. Mez's expression turned frigid. Realizing there was no room for negotiation, she chose to launch a sneak attack. In an instant, her ghostly figure appeared behind them, and the 7 remaining prince-level vampires swarmed in. Leo stepped forward to shield Evelyn, but it was all for show. He was just a fox borrowing the tiger's might. The real power was the witch. With a deafening boom, Tilly's immense magic clashed with the blood shadows. Tilly didn't move an inch, but the elder vampires were sent flying back, staggering several yards away. One of the elders looked at Mez, his expression complex. She's not even a high-tier mage. Another elder's face was grim. They say only the Order of Magical Arcanists still preserves the magical systems of the ancient Magus Imperium. With her level of power, she must have mastered Ninth Circle, or even post-Ninth Circle magic. She's beyond the realm of normal mages. The elder's defeat sent another wave of murmurs through the hall. When people realized this powerful mage was on Evelyn's side, and by extension, the human guest's side, they grew even more agitated. Leo surveyed the room with satisfaction. This was exactly the reaction he wanted. He didn't need Evelyn to personally defeat the rebellious elders. In fact, none of the Duke's potential heirs were old or strong enough to do so. He just needed everyone to see that Lady Evelyn had powerful backing. The dirty work didn't need to be done by the lady herself. But an even bigger surprise was yet to come. With a crackle of static, a magical communication projection appeared before Tilly. Evelyn, how are things on your end? Father wants an update. Evelyn spun around to see a pair of smiling, light-colored eyes staring at her. Ophelia. The iconic silver-white hair and exquisitely beautiful face appeared before everyone. Among the human guests, the 2 counts, Sword and Shield, began whispering. The 5th princess. His Majesty already knows what's happened here. Wait, Why is His Majesty asking Evelyn first? Does she even hold a title? Could it be? I. Evelyn shot a look at Leo. The sun must have risen in the west today. Ophelia appears, and, instead of seeking out Leo, she's concerned about her. But looking at the gossiping crowd and the spotlight she was now under, Evelyn finally got it. No matter how dense she could be, she understood now. These people had reached some kind of secret agreement behind her back. She looked at Leo's mischievous, smiling face. Then she looked at Ophelia, whose own smile was so wide she could barely contain it, her eyes glittering with calculation. Evelyn let out a helpless sigh. In this situation, they were really putting her on the spot, roasting her over an open fire. In the magical projection, Ophelia, now apprised of the events at Thornwood Castle, adopted a look of deep solemnity. I see, so that's what happened. I will report to Father immediately. I hope you can stabilize the situation there as soon as possible. The neighboring kingdoms are all making subtle moves. The Empire needs a stable Thornwood to guard the northern border. Her tone was official and serious. What could Evelyn say? She could only nod wearily. Oh, okay, understood. Leo quietly observed the room. Ever since Ophelia appeared, her words have been laced with subtle hints, letting people's imaginations run wild. But she never said anything explicit. They were acquaintances, after all. A familiar tone was perfectly normal. How others interpreted it wasn't her problem. She was telling the truth. The king was indeed very concerned about the situation at Thornwood, and she did want to catch up with the long-unseen Evelyn. Just before ending the communication, Ophelia asked casually, "Having a good time on this trip?" Evelyn found that strange. The question didn't seem directed at her. Sure enough, Ophelia's light-colored eyes flickered to Leo. She said with a half-smile, "Having so much fun you don't even want to come home." "Air." Leo glanced at the wreckage around him. "It's not like I can just leave," he thought. "All right, I have to go," Ophelia said with a faint smile. "See you in the capital." The projection vanished. Evelyn looked at Leo and chuckled. Why did her tone sound so jealous at the end there? Leo tried to change the subject. Maybe something important came up back in New Haven. She was reminding you to hurry back, Evelyn mused. You've only been gone a short while, just staying with me for a few days, and she's already getting angry. So petty. Leo gave a weak laugh. You're so smart, Professor. Evelyn shot him an annoyed glance, then looked at Tilly. Smart? I'm being manipulated by you schemers. And what you want is more than just the title of Duke of Thornwood, isn't it? What are you really planning? Tilly looked at her, remembering Ophelia's instructions, and her expression turned serious. Ophelia is worried about the coming war. Although I've never cared much for that so-called saintess this time, it seems she's become a real problem. I don't know what she went through, but her power is far beyond what it once was. The Church of Holy Light is also completely transformed. It seems she truly intends to spread her holy light to every corner of the world. In other words, Leo finished quietly. Shit's about to hit the fan. This wasn't just an alliance against Wigner. This was a religious war poised to sweep across the entire continent. Tilly's goal was simple. She had always been working toward her beautiful new world, which included her tireless work on the Magitech steam engine. And Ophelia, her ambition wasn't hard to guess, either. She was preparing for her ascent to the pinnacle of power. I know this is a burden for someone like you who values freedom, Tilly said, staring at Evelyn without blinking. But this time, I have a feeling that if we can't stop that God-crazed woman, she will dominate everything. The age of the church will return, and that would be the most terrifying apocalypse for every anomaly like you. Evelyn suddenly cut her off. All right, stop with the grand speeches. Tilly froze. She noticed that the more she talked, the angrier Evelyn became. She hadn't been like this when they were all putting on a show for her, but these words had soured her mood. What do I care about the state of the world? Evelyn said dismissively. I'm perfectly happy with my life. I don't have a throne to fight for, and I don't have lofty ideals like you, wanting to change the world. If you're trying to persuade me with that kind of talk, you can forget it. Evelyn's eyes held a trace of irritation, and she turned away from Tilly. Tilly smiled wryly. Ophelia had really miscalculated this time. She was skilled at manipulation, but she usually dealt with political animals, people who crave power above all else. Evelyn wasn't like that. She was a free spirit. Evelyn's annoyed gaze shifted to Leo. Leo, this all comes down to you. If you need me, I'll do it for you. So now, tell me. She stared directly into Leo's eyes. Do you need me? Do you need me to become the Duke of Thornwood? Leo had rarely seen his professor look so serious. For a moment, their eyes met, and he found himself hesitating. But he quickly composed himself and gave a firm nod. I need you, Professor. I hope you'll fight for that position. All right. Without a moment's hesitation, Evelyn agreed. Leo breathed a sigh of relief. But then, Evelyn added, but you have to promise me one thing, too. That's only fair. What is it? Leo asked curiously. I haven't thought of it yet. Evelyn grumbled. You all pull this massive stunt without even asking my opinion first. It's not like it's a bad deal for me, but it's still really annoying. Besides, Evelyn's eyes narrowed as she leaned close to Leo's face. The more I think about it, the more this seems wrong. Ophelia played this beautifully. If I become the Duchess, with all the mess this family is in, I won't have any time to spend with you. But you and her will be in the capital together every day. Is she doing this on purpose to get me out of the way? No, no, no. The more Evelyn thought, the more frustrated she became. I'm getting ripped off. This is a huge loss for me. Don't worry about that, Professor. Leo patted his chest and promised solemnly. I've already learned the teleportation spell from the grimoire. Once I master it, I'll be just like Tilly. Distance will never be an issue again. Evelyn crossed her arms. Easy for you to say, but don't think I'm just going to let this go. No way. This promise you're making me, I'm going to have to think long and hard about it. She narrowed her eyes and sized Leo up, her gaze making his skin crawl. Professor, why are you looking at me like you want to eat me? Leo muttered. What are you planning to do to me? Why, naturally. Her expression turned sinister. What is it? Naturally, I'm going to turn you into my blood thrall and torture you day and night. Leo said flatly. Professor, at least you're consistent. Scared now, aren't you? She said with a threatening look. I'm so scared, Professor, Leo said fearfully. It's good that you're scared. Evelyn finally looked satisfied. Anyway, I still haven't decided, so you can just live in suspense. The day I figure it out, you're not allowed to back out, no matter how hard it is. All right, Leo sighed. I guess I do owe you. As they were whispering, Tilly finally lost her patience. Would you two stop flirting? Those old fossils got away. What? They all looked and saw that Mez and her 7 remaining cronies were gone from the banquet hall. But their escape route was clear. They had dissolved into a blood mist that was now rapidly flowing out of the castle. After them, Tilly's figure shot into the air, and in an instant, she was standing on the highest point of Thornwood Castle's main tower. Tilly stood at the castle's highest point, the crimson moonlight bathing her in its glow. Dawn was still hours away, and the Blood Moon's domain still covered the snow-capped mountains. She looked down, searching. Playing hide-and-seek with vampires across an entire mountain range would be a pain, so she had to end as quickly. Tilly immediately cast a spell to enhance her senses. As it took effect, every rustle of wind and blade of grass within a dozen miles became clear to her. Soon, her eyes locked onto a cliff face on the side of the mountain. Without hesitation, she unleashed a 9th circle soul torrent. The rock face instantly exploded, exposing the fleeing figures of the elder vampires. There are other secret passages down the mountain. We split up. We'll meet at. One of the elders, a fraction of a second too slow, was grazed by the spell. The horrific magic instantly tore away half his body, revealing splintered white bone. Yeah, the elder let out a horrifying scream, his pace slowing. But no one dared to turn back for him. From her perch atop the tower, Tilly remained expressionless, unleashing a continuous stream of magnificent, deadly spells that bloomed across the snowy peaks. The elder with half a body was now left with no body at all. The flesh that should have regenerated instantly couldn't keep up as the soul torrent enveloped him, leaving nothing but a charred stain on the bare rock. How much magic does she have? Another elder, the fastest of the group, yelled, looking back in terror. She can still cast spells of this level after blasting through our wards? Is there no one left who can stop her? Mez appeared beside him in a flash of blood, her expression grim. Theoretically, the lowest vampire baron is about on par with a low-tier mage. A duke is equivalent to a high-tier mage. We, at the prince level, should be far superior to a high-tier mage, but as she spoke, another spell came crashing down. Mez teleported away just in time. But I can't even tell what level she is. I once dealt with an elder from the Order of Magical Arcanists. His magic was the most advanced I'd ever seen, but he was only about my equal. The one up there now is countless times stronger than him. Mez's frustration grew. God only knew how that Evelyn girl had managed to recruit such a powerful ally, one who even had the backing of an imperial princess. What was going on behind the scenes? The elder she was talking to grew even more astonished. Could it be? Could she be a Saint Tyr? A Saint Magus? Half a step from godhood? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Another elder joined the discussion. What era is this? It's not 3,000 years ago. Nowadays, The better you are at magic, the faster you go insane. How could anyone still walk the path of Elchagar, the god of magic? Mez looked up with hatred and vanished in a blur of blood. The instant she moved, a wave of heat erupted where she'd been, the magic blasting a terrifying crater in the rock. Stop running, Mez roared, looking at the crater. All of you, scurrying around like sewer rats. Another elder sneered at her. And what's your brilliant plan? Go back and fight her to the death. Mez immediately proposed. She forced her way through the wards. Her magic must be nearly depleted. She's probably just bluffing to scatter us. Follow me, we'll charge back. Mages are weakest up close, and close combat is our specialty. But after her suggestion, not a single vampire dared to turn back. They were all terrified by the seemingly endless torrent of magic. Give me a break. I've still got 800 years left in me. I'm not dying with you. That elder's face was dark. The only thing to do now is to escape while the Blood Moon's domain still holds. We'll take our chances. When we get back to the city of Cain, I don't care if those old bastards laugh at us. As he spoke, he flickered through the blood mist, glaring at Mez. Mez, your ambition has been our ruin. Trusting those people from a sea. You've done their dirty work. So where are they now? They've probably already run off. Did I force you to do this? Weren't you the ones who couldn't stand that Victor boy? What's the use of regretting it now? Mez sneered. Then, as if remembering something, she turned toward the depths of Thornwood Castle. That's right. We're the church people, she roared. Feline, Lawrence, if you still want to serve your saintess, get your asses out here. It's come to this. What are you still hiding for? As the elders frantically dodged, a light chuckle echoed through the mountains. Why so angry? Wasn't our partnership a pleasant one? Hearing the voice, Mez's anger intensified. So you were outside all along. No wonder I couldn't find you. A moment later, the speaker appeared. Dressed in the pure white robes of the church, Feline stood before Thornwood Castle. Behind her was Bishop Lawrence, looking around nervously. If I had stayed in the castle, the Abraham family would have eaten me alive, wouldn't they? Feline glanced at the disheveled Mez. I was just getting some fresh air, but you really are useless. Didn't you say that once you made your move, everything would be under your control? She clicked her tongue, looking at the ruined castle and the witch on the tower. And now look at this mess. How am I supposed to report back to the saintess? Mez said, exasperated. Who could have known that girl would summon such a group of allies? Including the leader of the Order of Magical Arcanists. She suppressed her anger. Now, it's your turn to act. I need help. Oh, Feline met the gaze of the figure on the tower, her expression turning serious. So, it's her. If that's the case. Was it you who killed Duke Victor? Tilly's voice boomed from above. You despicable hypocrites from the sea are all the same. Since you're here, I'll just kill you too. As she spoke, a blast of magic shot toward them. Feline felt the terrifying power and didn't even consider trying to block it. Enveloped in a white light, she shot into the air, narrowly dodging the attack. She looked down. Where she had been standing was now a massive crater, and the foul stench of Bishop Lawrence's incinerated remains hung in the air. The Wigner Church's most wanted fugitive, Tilly the Calamity Witch. Troublesome indeed. She murmured, understanding now why the saintess was so wary of this woman. While the witch was focused on the priestess, Mez yelled, Now is our chance to counterattack. Quickly, we have to buy her time. This is our only hope. The other elders exchanged glances, not understanding why Mez had such faith in the priestess. At this point, who could possibly defeat that witch? Listen to Mez, two of the elders shouted, also flying after her. They seem to know something. That priestess isn't strong herself, but she is divinely favored. She can use divine descent. So that's it. The other elders grew excited. If it was divine descent, then didn't that mean? Atop the tower, Tilly felt a pressure building, but her expression remained calm as she began to chant. Everyone present felt a colossal magical energy gathering above. They didn't know what spell it was, but they knew it would be even more terrifying than the last. As Mez drew closer, she could feel her own skin starting to blister. Feline, hurry up, she screamed. But what happened next reassured her. An incredibly holy white light enveloped the priestess. Her eyes were closed, as if praying to some unseen entity. O great, merciful Lord Balder, who brings light to the world. O Lady Elia Christine, who has risen from the abyss of judgment to wash away the sins of the world. Feline prayed devoutly, her hands clasped her chest. Your most faithful lambs beseech your power. We pray for the protection of the holy light. My body shall be an instrument of the divine. This vessel shall be the divine sword. The Lord is with me. As her prayer ended, even Tilly, high on her tower, was momentarily stunned. She felt as if something was watching her, but the feeling vanished as quickly as it came. Down in the banquet hall, Leo felt it even more strongly. The gaze lingered on him for a moment longer, a strange yet inexplicably familiar presence washing over him. He looked up, trying to find its source. As a soft, holy light enveloped the banquet hall, dispelling the filthy blood mist, all the humans felt a sense of warmth. The vampires, however, grew frantic. As creatures of darkness, they feared this power. "Brother, what is this?" Helena became agitated. Evelyn looked up at the sky. The crimson blood moon was gone. Ha ha ha! Amidst the vampires, only one person was not afraid, but instead laughing hysterically. It was Lainey. She had been clutching the Abraham family's holy relic box the whole time. Now, she stared at Evelyn with a strange look of jealousy and resentment. "You're finished. All of you are finished. No one can stand against the saintess of the sea, because I have witnessed it. Aunt Mez showed me. Ha, die. Evelyn." Lainey madly threw open the box. "That which outside can't save you. You can finally die." As Lainey laughed maniacally and opened the Abraham family's relic box, a sense of foreboding washed over Leo. "Professor," he asked urgently, "why does she think that can kill you? Is there something special about your family's relic?" Evelyn looked baffled. "All I know is that after a successor is chosen, they have to display the relic to the family to legitimize their claim. But it's just a beat-up old crown. They say it was passed down from before the age of the city of Cain, but it's never shown any special power. Father, and the master before him, never took it seriously." Despite her words, Leo cautiously pulled her back, his eyes fixed on the relic. Inside the box was indeed a crown, engraved with thorns and flowers in an ancient style. Lainey held it in her hands, her smile growing more triumphant, as if victory was already hers. "You're wrong, Evelyn. The family relic is not ordinary." Joe's deep voice came from behind them. Evelyn looked at him, confused. "Have you ever wondered why our vampire ancestors are said to be immortal?" Leo turned to Joe as well. He had wondered about that himself. Logically, besides gods, no species should be truly immortal. Yet the legends of the 7 vampire clans all claimed their progenitors were immortal, just currently in a deep slumber. "The true relic holds the will of the Abraham ancestor," Joe explained. "It is said that the 7 vampire progenitors were all masters of dark magic. Before their bodies failed, they extracted their own souls." What? The words sounded disturbingly familiar. Weren't souls and wills just another term for a psyche? The thought made him instinctively glance in the witch's direction. Outside, the castle grounds had become a battlefield of gods. Flashes of blinding light from the fight between Tilly and Feline illuminated the entire night sky. He couldn't interfere out there. He'd just be a liability to Tilly. Besides, he had faith in her strength. For now, he had to focus on the madwoman, Lainey. What Joe had just said reminded him of Tilly's soul extraction, and he'd also mentioned dark magic. Perhaps the source of the ancient dark magic Tilly had found came from the second-generation vampire ancestors. If that's the case, isn't this terrible? Evelyn said, suddenly tense. Joe nodded grimly. Indeed, it may sound like our ancestor is protecting us, but that is not the case. Years ago, when the Church's allied armies attacked the city of Cain, one of the 7 clans tried to awaken their ancestor to fight back. Unfortunately, summoning a god is easier than sending one away. Their ancestor immediately killed the clan master of that generation, stole his body, and had no intention of leaving its new vessel. And what was even more terrifying, not only did the ancestor not help, but he went on a rampage and slaughtered most of his own descendants. After that lesson, none of the other families ever considered such a thing again, no matter how dire the situation. No one dared to gamble with their family's future. Joe's expression darkened. After all, those beings who have survived from the ancient era are truly terrifying things. These 7 progenitors. It would not be an exaggeration to call them true demons. In that case, shouldn't we get the guests and run? Evelyn urged. But Joe shook his head. Don't worry, just yet. Evelyn looked at him. Despite the terrifying story, Joe himself didn't seem overly worried, which only confused her more. I said the true relic, Joe explained, not the fake one she's holding. Fake? Evelyn's eyes widened. Joe nodded with a faint smile. An item that dangerous would never be left lying around by generations of masters. That's just a replica made for the succession ceremony. It's just for show. As for where the real relic is kept, only the Duke himself would know. Oh, I see. Evelyn finally relaxed. Wait a second, Leo cut in. Mister, Joe, are you sure that thing is a fake? Of course, Joe said, smiling at Laney. But as he watched, his smile slowly faded. As Laney held the crown aloft, an icy presence washed over everyone in the hall. If the priestess's divine magic had been as warm as a spring breeze, this felt like being stared down by a venomous snake. The air in the banquet hall grew colder than the blizzard outside. Joe looked on in disbelief. How was that possible? How did she get the real relic? Laney's gaze remained locked on Evelyn, and Leo could feel a wave of inexplicable hatred rolling off her. Ancestor, kill her. Kill the traitors who side with the humans. At that moment, a blurry, shadowy figure appeared high in the hall. Leo couldn't make out its body, only an ancient, hideous face. Its gaze swept across the room, finally settling on Evelyn. This is bad. Leo pulled Evelyn back. He felt that the creature wasn't here to purge traitors, but to steal Evelyn's body. He glanced outside again at Tilly, but she was locked in a desperate battle and clearly couldn't help them. To fight this true Abraham, he was on his own. Elsewhere, upon realizing P11.I had used divine descent, Tilly's entire demeanor had changed. Holy light enveloped P11.I. Her expression had become utterly detached as she rose higher into the sky, looking down upon the land like a true goddess. Tilly frowned. What made things more difficult was that P11.I seemed to have developed a resistance to her magic. Several high-circle spells slammed into her, but they didn't even make her flinch. It felt like punching cotton. Her magic was just being swallowed by a bottomless pit. How is she doing that? Tilly muttered to herself. Did she really summon a god? But that was impossible. Divine magic, like all magic, had been corrupted long ago. Balder, the god of light, had either fallen or met some other fate, which was the main reason for the church's decline. Which left only one possibility. Tilly's thoughts turned to the resurgent sea of Sistun, and an idea took shape. When P11.I had prayed, she hadn't just invoked Balder. The second half of her prayer had been to Lady Elia Christine. Elia, the current saintess of the sea, and once one of them. Elia has become a god. Elia and her followers had established some kind of system. Tilly knew what that meant. Just like the Wigner royal family in Nodens, a divinely favored individual could borrow power from their god. This conclusion was even harder for her to accept. She and her master had sacrificed so much in their research of the divine and had failed. Yet Elia, in just 4 years, had transformed from a mediocre cleric who could barely swing a mace into a god. It was unacceptable. Something's wrong. This is all wrong. Tilly thought, shielding herself from the holy light of divine punishment raining from the sky. If Elia had truly become a god, then she had no chance of winning. She might as well just grab Leo and run. If she was defeated here, Elia would probably have P11.I tie Leo up and drag him to the sea that very night, and it would all be over. As her initial shock faded, Tilly calmed down and sent out another probing ninth circle spell. The pure white holy light dimmed for an instant before returning to its full intensity, hanging in the sky like a second sun. She's strong, but not as strong as the ones from that day. Tilly thought. During the massive brawl in that small town, she had witnessed the old god Nodens and the chaos god who had taken an interest in Leo. Even a glance from those beings was terrifying. Elia wasn't on that level. So at most, she was a demigod, on par with that great black dragon. Still mortal. The thought relaxed her a little. She shot into the sky, wanting to face this P11.I, or rather, Elia, face to face. A battle between us is bound to damage Thornwood Castle. Aren't you afraid Leo will die in the crossfire of your divine spells? Tilly laughed, playing the emotional card first. Sure enough, P11.I's divine, impassive expression faltered for a second, and the white halo around her flickered. Tilly sneered inwardly and pressed her advantage. I don't know what you're trying to do, but I know that back then, you must have regretted your own weakness, just like I did, feeling powerless as he left. But he's back now. Why are you hiding in the shadows, playing God, afraid to even speak to him? He never blamed us. He would be so happy and proud to see what you become. You don't have to be so stubborn anymore. Tilly had hoped her words would get through to P11.I, or at least convince her to stop fighting with such destructive force, to spare the people in the castle. But to her surprise, the holy white light suddenly began to flash violently. P11.I looked at her with a conflicted, panicked expression, but it was gone in an instant, replaced again by that detached, divine look. The holy light grew even more brilliant, so blindingly bright that Tilly could barely see. She could feel the power of 1,000,000 faithful believers, a light that could swallow everything. High above Thornwood Castle, the divine spell illuminated the night sky as if it were day. Tilly squinted up at the blinding holy light, which at Philene's command coalesced into countless lances of pure energy. She recognized it instantly. This was the high-tier divine art that had killed countless anomalies and superpowered individuals throughout the Church's history. Judgment. And from the godlike scale of it, this was an enhanced version. To think that the little cleric who could only swing a mace has become so powerful, Tilly said, her brow furrowed. She looked at the distant figure. You're absorbing the faith of your followers, aren't you? The moment the spell had formed, she had felt the fervent prayers of thousands of believers. That was why this single-target spell, which had once killed General Abraham, was now so immense. You've been doing this ever since you started playing God as the so-called saintess, haven't you? Tilly asked curiously. How did you do it? As far as I know, mortals can't absorb the power of faith. But the distant Philine, or Elia, simply stared at her in silence. Not talking, playing dumb, Tilly sneered, not really expecting an answer. Whatever method she had used, if her ambition succeeded and the sea ruled the entire continent, with all of humanity believing in her, then Elia would truly become a god, and she would be completely outmatched. Tilly grew more cautious, her eyes fixed on the array of light lances above. The moment her opponent made a move, she would teleport away. But then, an eerie silence fell between them. Aside from the judgment spell hanging in the sky, ready to strike, Elia made no move. What game are you playing? Tilly asked, but her opponent remained silent. This was getting stranger and stranger. The Elia she remembered had been a chatterbox, always smiling gently and preaching her doctrines. But after 4 years, she was like a different person, unnaturally quiet. She looked at her again, confused. But this time, she noticed Elia's gaze would occasionally dart down toward the castle below. Tilly understood instantly. She let out a derisive laugh. You're afraid of hitting him, aren't you? And here I thought you'd completely lost your mind. A divine spell of this magnitude would surely obliterate the ancient castle and everyone in it, including Leo. After she said this, Elia's previously detached gaze flickered. She finally spoke, her voice slow and measured. You, move. Tilly burst out laughing. Finally stop playing dumb? Fine, we'll fight somewhere else. She mocked her as a deep blue teleportation circle lit up at her feet. The next second, Tilly teleported to a position behind Elia, far away from Thornwood Castle. But to her surprise, the countless lances of light remained locked on, swiveling in an instant to aim at her new position. Elia, you! Tilly's pupils constricted. The instant she landed, the light intensified, and the judgment spell rained down from the heavens. This crazy bitch had launched a sneak attack. She played dirty. Tilly cursed inwardly, scrambling to gather her magic and instinctively teleporting back a great distance. With a deafening roar, the top of a snow-capped mountain was sheared clean off by the divine spell. Tilly looked at her own bleeding arm, then glared into the distance. The attack hadn't hit her directly, but the radiant energy had seared her skin, leaving large, festering wounds. If she hadn't thrown up a high-circle magic shield, her entire body would have been vaporized. She didn't particularly care about the survival of this physical body. She could always whip up a new one, but Tilly was furious. She had always considered herself the strongest among Leo's allies, looking down on everyone else. To think she'd be pushed into such a sorry state by this church woman she'd always detested. You've done it now, Elia. Tilly watched as Elia began to cast the same spell again. Bolstered by the faith of countless followers, her power was practically infinite. Since her opponent had thrown all pretenses aside and was clearly trying to kill her, Tilly decided to go all out as well. As the light of the spell once again gathered above, Tilly's mind raced. Ninth Circle magic was useless against her. But post-Ninth Circle spells took too long to cast. By the time she finished the incantation, she'd be skewered by 1,000 lances of judgment. She needed to end this fast, which left only one option. It was a pity about this new body, though. Oh well, out with the old, in with the new. I'll just sculpt a better one next time. Having made up her mind, Tilly teleported even deeper into the mountains. As she went, she looked back and laughed tauntingly. Come on, you stupid cleric who can only parrot her doctrines. All talk and no action, thinking you're so righteous. Your act only fools idiots. No wonder even Leo couldn't stand you. You're so damn annoying. Taunts like these were usually useless against someone of her level, but adding Leo's name changed everything. As soon as she said it, Elia's gaze turned ice cold, and she shot toward Tilly at incredible speed. Tilly could feel the judgment spell above her growing even more terrifying. But she didn't let up. After a few harmonious conversations with Ophelia, her own silver tongue had sharpened considerably. Ha ha! Tilly laughed. Why so angry all of a sudden? Did I hit a nerve? Elia's expression grew even colder. As they chased each other, the tops of 3 more mountains were obliterated by the divine spell. Inside the castle, Leo was facing an even bigger problem. When Lainey opened the relic box and released the vampire ancestor, an ancient, terrifying presence filled the room. Joe had described the old vampire progenitors as demon-like, and now Leo was experiencing it firsthand. The first thing this Abraham ancestor thought of upon waking was not its family or its enemies, but of immediately possessing one of its descendants. Its shadowy form circled the hall, its chilling gaze making every young vampire tremble. Finally, it locked its eyes on Evelyn. It had quickly identified the most promising of the younger generation. "Professor, watch out!" Leo saw the hideous thing hurtle toward Evelyn and, gritting his teeth, threw up a 6-circle sigil shield. But the power difference was overwhelming. The chilling aura slammed into him, and his magic shield shattered like glass. He was sent flying. "Brother!" Helena roared, her body rapidly growing into the twisted form she'd taken when hunted by the vampires. Her thick tentacles lashed out at the ancestor's shadow. The ancestor turned its baleful gaze on her. Its shadow sharpened, and Helena's thick tentacles were sliced cleanly in two. Helena cried out in pain, her corruption level spiking as her attacks grew even more frenzied. But even her immense strength, enough to crush a group of young vampires, was useless. After a few seconds, all of Helena's tentacles had been severed, and she let out a pained shriek. Leo staggered to his feet. He glanced at Joe and Monica, who had retreated to a safe distance, their faces tense, and rushed toward Evelyn. The ancestor had her. An unseen force lifted her into the air, its grip tight around her throat. She could barely make sound, but her first thought was still for him. "Leo, what are you doing? Run." Leo had no intention of running. He glared at the shadow, which was now examining Evelyn, its hideous mouth splitting into a grin, seemingly pleased with its choice of a new vessel. "Yes, that's it, that's it," Lainey shrieked from afar. "Ancestor, kill her, kill her." The next second, Leo heard the sickening crack of bones breaking in Evelyn's neck. Her struggles weakened, and her voice faded. The vampire ancestor let out a low chuckle. Its shadow flickered, hovering over Evelyn's head like a curtain. Seeing the thing about to possess his professor, a wave of pure hatred washed over Leo. He charged forward and slammed his fist into the shadow's ugly face. "Get the hell away from my professor, you ugly piece of shit," he roared. The banquet hall fell silent. For a moment, many of the vampires thought he had gone insane. The ancestor had no physical form, and Leo hadn't even used magic. A simple punch couldn't possibly harm it. But what happened next made their eyes widen in disbelief. With a dull thud, the vampire ancestor let out an enraged roar. Leo's punch had nearly dispersed its shadowy form, and its attempt to possess Evelyn was forcibly stopped. The ancestor's shadow quickly floated up to the ceiling. After its initial rage, it stared down at the ordinary human below, utterly bewildered. At the same time, an even stranger scene began to unfold. The humans and vampires in the banquet hall, who had been whispering amongst themselves, suddenly grew loud and chaotic. Many of them began shouting and cursing, and then they started fighting. The vampire ancestor looked around, a rare expression of confusion on its face. Leo watched the chaos erupt. As the negative desires in everyone's hearts were unleashed, a flood of strange inner thoughts poured into his mind. But he had no time to listen to their ridiculous gossip. He gently cradled the unconscious Evelyn in his arms. He lowered his head to her chest. When he felt the faint rise and fall of her breathing and the powerful thrum of her blood core, he finally let out a sigh of relief. As long as she was breathing, as long as her core was intact, she would live. This had happened several times before. He entrusted Evelyn to Helena's newly regrown black tentacles, then turned his cold gaze back to the Abraham ancestor. Chaos is essence. Tumult is power. Authority. Chaos Leo would rather die than see that hideous thing steal his professor's body. He had no other choice but to use the power he had always resisted, the authority granted to him by Nyarlathotep. After settling the unconscious Evelyn, Leo glanced at the vampire ancestor's shadow hovering high above. Seeing it was too afraid to descend, he turned his attention to the others in the hall. After activating his authority, chaos, the entire hall had become a cacophony, and a flood of bizarre voices echoed in his mind. The loudest came from one of the heirs, Lyle's. Leo saw him wrestling with a group of young vampires. Damn it, the master's seat is mine. You pieces of trash think you're worthy of competing with me? He snarled, latching onto a cousin and sinking his teeth into him, his eyes filled with murderous rage. I'll kill you. Kill all of you. Lyle's mouth was slick with blood, his face a mask of savagery. Ha ha! Who else? Who else dares to challenge me? But the other young vampires were just as frenzied, and they quickly turned on each other in a bloody free-for-all. Leo watched with a sneer. Every one of them coveted that position. He had merely amplified the desire that was already in their hearts. Meanwhile, the human guests were putting on their own show. Leo saw the two counts, sword and shield, with their hands around each other's throats in a passionate brawl. You stole my fiancée. I'll kill you. I'll take Lady Nancy back. Ha ha. You bald-headed fool. You dare to dream of my wife? You were too slow. The goddess of your heart has long since been reshaped into my plaything. Ha ha. Leo felt like he was getting some prime gossip. The two were always together. Anyone would have thought they were good friends. Who knew they harbored such resentment for each other? His gaze continued to wander. He found himself strangely eager to see more drama. He looked over at Headmaster Danton, who was red in the face, brandishing a heavy candelabra. The 70-year-old was screaming as he charged at a royal attendant. You dog of the dog emperor, cutting our academy's budget year after year. Don't you understand that Magitech industry is the future? Every one of our projects could change the world. You damned imperial parasites. I'll rid the empire of you myself. Leo had never seen Danton so agitated. It seemed the academy and Magitech were truly the most important things in his heart. He quickly weakened the chaos effect in Danton's area, worried the old man might throw out his back. Danton froze mid-swing, candelabra held high. The royal attendant opposite him also came to his senses. They stared at each other awkwardly. Danton silently lowered the candelabra, feeling that this time he was really going to have to retire. Leo's gaze shifted again, and he found the most entertaining drama of all, the Duchess. She was sneaking off somewhere, but her inner thoughts betrayed her true intentions. Looking at this mess, is Victor really dead? He better not come back to life, or if my affair with his nephew gets out, I'll be completely ruined. The Duchess kept glancing at a young vampire, hiding a small dagger in the folds of her dress, her beautiful face twisted with malice. I'll sneak back to that guest room. If he's not dead yet, I'll give him a little help. Yes, for my future happiness. It's the only way. Victor, you can't blame me for this. Leo glanced at the young vampire. He was indeed quite handsome, and even bore a slight resemblance to himself. No wonder the Duchess had looked at him that way at first. But he could imagine the lonely Duchess having an affair, but with the Duke's own nephew. The upper crust was a real cesspool. After checking in on most of the gossip, Leo suddenly became curious about the people closest to him. He was about to check on Helena when he saw Emily clinging to Monica's leg, completely unhinged. Big Sister Monica, my Big Sister Monica. The child was giggling inanely. She was a lost cause. When he finally found Helena, her black tentacles were cradling the unconscious Evelyn. Her large, blue eyes were fixed on a vampire, and she was muttering to herself. Brother likes her. Brother likes her. Brother likes her. No, this won't do at all. I can't let her steal brother away. I think. The black tentacles slowly tightened around Evelyn's body, and her gaze turned sinister. I think. Leo walked over wearily. No, you don't. He tried to control his authority and found he couldn't target a single person, only reduce the chaos in a small area. As the people around them returned to normal, Helena looked up at Leo in surprise. Brother, what just happened? Monica, finally free of Emily, rushed over. Yes, what was that? Why are you the only one unaffected? Leo blinked innocently. It has nothing to do with me. How is that possible? Joe, the elder vampire, stared at Leo, then glanced uneasily at the ancestor in the sky. He had seen Leo's punch send the ancestor reeling, and then this had happened. How could it not be related to him? Believe what you want, Leo said, looking up to face the creature again. As the bizarre scene unfolded in the banquet hall, the vampire ancestor's shadow finally seemed to be at its wit's end. Leo could practically see the question marks floating around its head. But besides confusion, its gaze also held a new wariness, a wariness of him. As the dark desires of everyone in the hall were unleashed, their jealousy, anger, greed, and lust all transformed into power for Leo. This small corner of the world had become his domain, and the ancestor could feel his newfound strength. Leo felt all his depleted magic return, and not just return, but surge with an incredible, overwhelming power far beyond his normal levels. He wanted to understand the full extent of this authority. Its description had been so abstract, and this was his first time using it. He glanced at his status panel. Besides his charisma, which had been maxed out in the previous loop, all his other stats were at 100. Or maybe even higher. The panel couldn't display values beyond that. As he studied the panel, a chilling howl echoed from above, and a cold wind swept through the hall. He looked up. The vampire ancestor could wait no longer. Its shadow descended in an instant. "Brother, it's coming again!" Helena cried, trying to shield him. But Leo no longer needed her to draw its fire. He tentatively threw up another 6-circle sigil shield. With a sizzle, the ancestor slammed into the shield. The blue magical light looked like a thin film, but it held firm. Leo was stunned. On his panel, the spell was registered as 10th circle. He had only ever seen such post-9th circle forbidden magic from Tilly. Indeed, chaos was power. Leo felt like he was overflowing with it. He threw another punch, right at the ancestor's ugly face. The ancestor howled in pain, and its shadow scattered, terrified. But Leo wasn't about to let it get away. He laughed, a cold, sharp sound, and leaped into the air, grabbing the tail of its shadow and slamming it into the floor. With a deafening crash, the banquet hall filled with dust, and a large crater was smashed into the floor. The ancestor shrieked, its terror palpable. The blow had almost completely dispersed its shadow. It frantically reformed and tried to flee through the castle's large windows. Leo's mouth split into an even more unsettling grin, and he chased after it like a rabid dog. A series of thunderous impacts echoed through the castle. The already damaged building, with a hole blown through it by the witch, was now being pummeled even further. Helena stared at her brother in shock. His laughter had even scared her. She had never seen this terrifying, unfamiliar side of him. Monica watched the scene silently, finding the chase oddly comical. She couldn't help but ask, "What exactly is your brother?" Helena opened her mouth, her voice uncertain. "He's human. Yeah, probably human." Amidst the chase, Leo felt several times that he was about to tear the vampire ancestor to shreds, but its reactions were just a bit too fast. Every time, its scattered shadow would slip through his fingers. "Stop running, you bastard!" Leo roared, launching an enhanced magic missile at a wall, adding another hole to the castle's decor. Dealing with an intangible enemy was infuriating. It reminded him of the witch. In a way, a dead Tilly was even more dangerous than a living one, because her opponents simply couldn't kill her. This thing was the same. His overflowing magic turned him into a walking magical cannon. The ancient castle walls were gradually blasted into Swiss cheese, holes everywhere. Cold wind whipped through the hall, making it feel no different from being outside on the snowy mountains. The battle continued for a few more minutes. Perhaps it was the cold, or perhaps the people below had tired of fighting, but the chaos in the banquet hall began to subside. Leo suddenly felt a change in his power. His magic was slowly draining away, as was his enhanced physical strength. He tried casting another magic missile. The spell had gone from post-9th circle down to 6th circle. Soon, it would probably revert back to a simple first circle spell. The authority's power came from chaos. But now, the chaos was ending, and order was returning. Leo felt a strange sense of regret, followed by surprise. He was surprised that he wasn't regretting the loss of power. He seemed to want to create more and more chaos. It was a destructive urge that seemed to well up from deep within him, as if it were innate. Chaos is essence. Tumult is power. Create chaos. Delight him. Make him rejoice and gain infinite power. Leo felt like the scene was missing something. It wasn't chaotic enough. He glanced at the fleeing vampire ancestor and decided to up the ante. Advanced item, shining trapezohedron, can be used to summon a servant or kin of the crawling chaos, Nyarlathotep, to briefly fight alongside you. Light can inhibit this item's activation. Please use in a dark environment. He pulled a small box from his magic pocket, removed the glowing stone inside, and snapped it shut. Now, the box contained only the mysterious polyhedron and complete darkness. He had fulfilled the item's activation requirement. Weird summoning ritual, Leo muttered, looking around and waiting. The moment the box closed, Leo felt the presence of a chaotic, tumultuous being. Summoning its servant or kin would certainly draw its attention. Though he couldn't see it, Leo could somehow picture its expression, curious, watching him. Maybe it was propping its chin on its hand, a wicked, malicious smile on its face. "Showtime, Nyarlathotep. Come get your entertainment," Leo said, annoyed. He looked up at the sky. A massive shadow was faintly visible in the night sky above Thornwood Castle. Nyarlathotep's servant had appeared. For Leo, the enormous, snake-like creature was an old friend. "We meet again," he thought wryly. The last time he'd seen it was during the Great Chaos in New Haven. He never thought they'd end up on the same side so soon. Though technically, Leo outranked it. He was a favorite of a god. It was just a servant. With the appearance of Nyarlathotep's servant, the terror hunter, everyone in the banquet hall looked up in terror. It was a flying creature with a strange, twisted head covered in tentacle-like appendages and wings like black rubber. Its glowing red, unsettling eyes looked down on them all. The creature's arrival brought with it a powerful psychic assault. Even Leo himself found it a bit much. He quickly pointed at the dumbfounded vampire ancestor. "Don't hit me by mistake. That one's the enemy." The ancestor snapped out of its stupor and fled, its shadow darting through a window with incredible speed. But to its despair, the terror hunter, as if knowing where it would go, appeared directly in its path and opened its massive jaws. With a horrifying shriek, the ancestor's shadow was caught, torn at like prey. As Leo watched, its psyche grew dimmer and dimmer. The renewed chaos in the hall made Leo feel his power returning. He didn't know if an extracted psyche could be truly killed, but with the terror hunter's help, the ancestor was definitely not getting away. Leo's figure flashed, appearing before the stunned Lainey. He snatched the relic box from her hands and vanished again. Lainey, thinking she'd been spared, was about to breathe a sigh of relief when Leo's eerie, smiling face reappeared before her. You. What are you doing? What do you think? Payback's a bitch." Leo sneered at the trembling Lainey. If it wasn't for her, this would have been over long ago. Evelyn wouldn't have been nearly killed, and he wouldn't have had to use Nyarlathotep's power. "Don't touch my sister. I'll kill you." Lyles charged forward like a madman, his blood blade aimed at Leo's head. He can still move under this psychic pressure. Leo glanced at him. Lyles was covered in blood, looking completely insane. Lainey knew her brother was no match for him. "Don't come here," she screamed. But it was too late. Leo's fist slammed into Lyles's head. With a sickening crunch, blood and brains splattered everywhere. Lyles's headless body was sent flying like a cannonball into a wall with another deafening crash. "Lyles!" Lainey shrieked, her eyes wide with horror. Leo grabbed her by the neck. She was completely helpless as he threw her toward Helena. Helena, in perfect sync, wrapped her in black tentacles. With a series of gruesome cracks, Lainey's bones were shattered. "Yeah." Leo gave a satisfied glance and turned away, taking the relic box and heading for the vampire ancestor. In a short time, the terror hunter was here. If the ancestor could be killed, all the better. If not, it would be sent back to where it belonged. After Leo left, Helena slammed Lainey's broken body to the floor. She was barely breathing. Evelyn, who had recovered slightly and was resting against a wall, looked at the despairing Lainey and understood why Leo had done it. She smiled and shook her head. He was letting her deliver the final blow. When Leo burst out of the castle, he found the vampire ancestor had been tormented beyond recognition. Then again, it didn't have a recognizable form to begin with. But after a frantic shredding by Nyarlathotep's servant, the ancestor's psyche was growing dimmer. By the time Leo walked over, it was no longer making any sound, completely unresponsive. "Is it dead?" Leo tentatively poked the psychic entity. It didn't move, just floated gently in the air, letting him manipulate it. For a life form like this, he wasn't sure what constituted true death. It could just be playing dead. The terror hunter, seeing its target had gone still, turned its crimson, baleful eyes on Leo, who was just a few feet away. Being stared at by this thing sent a prickling sensation up his scalp. He immediately muttered, "What are you looking at me for? We're on the same side now." The terror hunter seemed to catch the scent of Nyarlathotep on Leo, and its massive head tilted with a hint of suspicion. In the end, it didn't dare make a move on him. Instead, it shifted its bloodthirsty gaze to the humans and vampires inside the castle, its colossal form lunging in their direction. Leo's heart seized. He was a thrall of Nyarlathotep, but his professor and the others weren't. The terror hunter was about to go on a killing spree, just like that time in New Haven before he'd had to reload save. Realizing he could no longer command it, Leo quickly pulled out the mysterious polyhedron and terminated the summoning ritual. Get back in your box. The terror hunter let out an irritated growl before its form slowly dissipated into the air, melting back into the darkness. Leo finally let out a breath and turned his attention back to the ancestor's phantom. Stop playing possum. He sneered, tapping the reliquary in his hand. The box slowly opened a crack. The ancestor's psyche seemed to jolt as if struck by lightning. It trembled once, then shot back into the box like a fugitive. Leo closed the lid with a mocking grin. After tonight's ordeal, the thing was probably scared out of its wits. He figured that no matter how much its descendants called upon it in the future, it wouldn't dare show its face again. The outside world was too terrifying. You could run into the servants and thralls of outer gods at every turn. Leo walked slowly back into the grand hall and found it eerily silent. Aside from Helena and his companions, everyone was staring at him with wary eyes. As the quiet settled back in, the power he wielded was gradually fading, but even so, no one dared to cause him any trouble. This scene of him holding the entire room in thrall, however, didn't bring him much joy. After using the authority granted to him by Nyarlathotep, Leo felt his connection to the entity deepen, and he couldn't possibly see that as a good thing. It was exhilarating, wielding power like that. But once you start, it's hard to stop. It was like opening Pandora's box. Just moments ago, Leo had felt himself getting high on it. He found himself anticipating the chaos, even wanting to create more. Much more. That wasn't like the old him at all. He didn't know what he might become in the future, whether he'd end up exactly as Nyarlathotep wished, fully embracing the chaotic alignment and ultimately falling into darkness. As he thought this, Leo suddenly heard the faint giggle of a little girl. He looked up. Though he couldn't see her, he could feel her will. She was watching him, smiling like a predator whose trap had just been sprung, her voice a seductive whisper in his mind. Tonight wasn't quite enough. Try harder next time, okay? Hee hee. Aren't you excited for even greater power? Leo snorted. Once the authority of chaos had completely vanished, he could no longer feel her presence. His mood soured. He walked over to Evelyn, who looked a little better than before, but was still having trouble moving. I'm fine. With my natural resilience, I'll probably be recovered by tomorrow morning. Evelyn murmured, gently touching her neck and hissing in pain. Leo looked at her neck. A dark, bruise-like ring marred her once pale skin. The ancestor had nearly snapped her neck. He gently helped her up and pulled over a chair, urging her to sit and rest. The chair was surprisingly sturdy, having survived the chaos. Coincidentally, it was the very same one the Duke had been sitting in, the one in the center of the hall, symbolizing the head of the family. Leo took a tube of ointment from his dimensional pocket and gently applied it to the wound on Evelyn's neck. His touch was light, tender, but the cool salve on the raw skin still made her let out a soft, pained moan. She looked embarrassed. Leo, not right now. Everyone's watching. Can't we wait until we're back in our room? Leo shook his head. No, besides this stuff is potent. You'll feel much better in a minute, and the pain will go away. Evelyn couldn't argue with him and nodded reluctantly. All right. After treating her wound, Leo held up the reliquary and offered it to her with a smile. This family heirloom is dangerous. I think you should be the one to deal with it now. Evelyn frowned as she took the family relic. This was the thing that had caused the whole terrifying mess, the thing that had almost cost her her life. Father must have hidden this properly. I don't know how those two got their hands on it. She had no idea what to do with it. It wasn't supposed to be her responsibility anyway. Her eyes instinctively searched for the family elders. Joe was looking at her with a complicated expression, but said nothing. You should take it. I think it's scared of you, Evelyn said, trying to hand the box back to Leo. But Leo just smiled and shook his head, refusing. He glanced around at the silent vampires, then at Evelyn, seated in the center of the hall. The act of handing her the family relic had a strange, ceremonial gravity to it, with everyone watching. It would be even better if you could wear the crown, Leo said, rubbing his chin. Yeah, that would really complete the vampire queen look. I'm not wearing that thing. Evelyn shot back with a glare. The earlier events were still fresh in her mind. She wouldn't be opening that box for the rest of her life. Isn't there a fake one? Helena piped up excitedly. I'll go find it for you. No, that's quite enough. Evelyn waved her off wearily. She glanced at the vampires staring silently at her. She was already conspicuous enough. Leo. She looked up and asked suddenly, is it over? Is all of today's chaos finished? Not completely. Leo gazed out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the snow-capped mountains. Tilly and that priestess had disappeared somewhere in the distance. Every now and then, a terrifying tremor would roll down from the deep mountains. He had no idea how the battle was going. While he had faith in the witch's power and believed she would win, even if her fight ended, things here in the castle were not over. His eyes scanned the crowd of vampires, searching for something. There was one final piece missing from today's puzzle. Was the Duke truly dead? And was his earlier theory correct, that the Duke had played a crucial, guiding role in this whole three-act tragedy? As he pondered this, Leo and everyone else in the hall heard a panicked commotion from the second floor. Evelyn recognized the voice and frowned. That's Aunt Sherry, the Duchess. Leo suddenly remembered something. Under the influence of his chaos authority, that woman had been about to murder her own husband. Let's go. Leo called to Helena, quickly helping Evelyn to her feet. If the Duke hadn't been dead before, but his wife delivered the final blow, that would be a tragically comical end. He had to see what was happening. As the three of them headed upstairs, Joe, Monica, Emily, and the others followed close behind. When Leo reached the door of the parlor where the Duke had died, he saw someone completely unexpected. And Evelyn looked ahead in confusion, then glanced at the Duchess, who had been knocked unconscious on the floor. Standing before them was the head housekeeper, Anne, who had been missing for some time, and had been the one to guide them to their rooms in Thornwood Castle. But Leo hadn't seen her since the banquet began. For such an important figure in the Abraham family to have zero presence during today's chaos was enough to make anyone's imagination run wild. Miss, Anne's smile was faint. She looked at the others. And Joe, Monica, you've come at just the right time. What happened to you? Evelyn could see she was incredibly weak, so much so that even speaking seemed difficult. Anne clutched her chest, a bitter smile on her face. Never mind me for now. Come with me. I'll take you somewhere. The master entrusted me with a task, something I must relay to you. Leo, supporting Evelyn, followed her at once. A curious Emily tried to trail behind, but stopped her with a gentle smile. This concerns family secrets. Only Miss Evelyn, Miss Monica, and Joe may enter, and patted Emily's head. You just look after your mother. Oh, Emily pouted, watching them leave. After following and into the parlor, Leo's gaze fell on the Duke's body. He was still sitting quietly in his chair, eyes closed, as if he had simply fallen asleep. Evelyn stared at her father's body, her eyes distant. Leo gently squeezed her hand. They followed into the study. With a low rumble, a secret door slid open and said in a low voice, though Headmaster Danton renovated the castle, he doesn't know about this secret passage. The family's most important secret is hidden below. Walking down the long, dark, narrow secret passage, Evelyn looked at, and with growing curiosity, the family's most important secret. She had already learned so many family secrets today. What could possibly be more important than the secret of the vampire ancestor? As she led the way and spoke in a low voice, you know how the previous head of the family died, don't you, miss? Evelyn nodded. The elders had told her that during the war against the See of Sistun, the previous patriarch had suddenly and uncharacteristically acted alone, becoming trapped deep within the holy mountain of Sistun. He was eventually surrounded by the church's forces and killed by the divine right of judgment. The general was always desperate to uncover what the church was hiding. He wanted to know why our world became what it is today, and said softly, the secret he discovered pertains to the true history of our world. Everyone's breath caught. Evelyn and Leo exchanged a look of surprise. True history? Leo's mind raced. The world's history before the rise of the church was obscure and fragmented. Everything people knew now had been compiled and edited during the age of the church, the version where the God of light created the world and was the one true God. But thanks to Tilly, Leo knew that was a load of crap. The Order of Magical Arcanists was a remnant of the ancient Magus Imperium, and the original Church of Holy Light had been just a tiny organization in the Imperium's final days. As he was thinking and pushed open an iron door at the end of the passage, faint blue Magitech light flickered on, revealing an underground library filled with bookshelves. Leo's eyes were immediately drawn to several large murals on the walls. The technique wasn't as refined as an oil painting, but they were rich in detail, and their subject matter piqued his interest. The first mural depicted a multitude of figures radiating a divine aura. Looking closer, he realized it was a banquet of the gods. They were gathered in a beautiful, celestial garden. Their expressions varied. Below their sun-drenched divine kingdom, countless people on earth worshipped them. It was the first time Leo had seen a direct depiction of the gods. Its timely explanation confirmed a long-held suspicion. The general secretly read through the church's private archives and old paintings. This was all so-called heresy that the church forbids from being spread. history far older than even our vampire lineage. The general brought these secrets back at the cost of his life, and the master reorganized them and had them carved onto these walls, and was also looking at the mural. As you can see, there was a time in this world when the gods walked among us. Humans and the other races could hear their guidance directly and receive their gifts. It said that age was one of abundance and prosperity, a time as beautiful as a garden. After hearing Anne's explanation, Monica's expression slowly filled with shock. I thought this world only had outer gods. I can't believe there were once gods so benevolent to all living things. Helena's eyes were wide with curiosity. She leaned in and pointed at one of the gods. That guy with the glowing head looks so familiar. Hey, isn't that the god of light? Monica nodded. It does look like him. This must be Baldur's original form. The two leaned in for a closer look. Suddenly, Monica realized something was off. She glanced at Helena. It wasn't the painting that felt wrong, but the curious girl beside her. She moved closer to and whispered, and this is a secret of the Abraham family, right? She looked at Anne suspiciously, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Why was an outsider like Helena here? Wasn't it wrong to reveal these secrets to her? Joe was naturally just as confused by Anne's decision, wondering if the Duke had specifically instructed her. Brother, I don't want to leave. Sensing everyone's eyes on her, Helena retreated to Leo's side, looking wronged. It's dark and spooky out there. Leo stroked Helena's hair and shot a deadpan look at Monica. She stays where I stay. You got a problem with that? Being stared at by Leo like that, Monica immediately shivered. No problem at all. The image of Leo chasing down the ancestor and beating it senseless in the grand hall was still fresh in her mind. To be honest, she was now a little afraid of Evelyn's partner, and didn't say anything more. With her brother backing her up, Helena grinned. Leo continued to study the murals. If what they depicted was true, it was definitive proof that the church was lying. The god of light was not the creator god. He was merely one among many ancient deities. But the church, for its own purposes, had elevated him to the status of the one true God, and had been persecuting other faiths ever since. Everyone's gaze shifted to the next mural, eager to see what happened next that led the world to its current state. The next painting was significantly more abstract. The figures of the gods were still recognizable, but they seemed to be fighting an invading enemy. These enemies were bizarrely shaped creatures. Some were nothing more than chaotic, bloated, indescribable masses. Looking further, Leo saw a scene of a withered world. The gods were decimated, their followers driven mad, and the world plunged into chaos. And said softly, these evil and powerful foreign deities killed most of the native gods. They usurped their authority. Leo said grimly, the outer gods invaded, and the gods fell. Everything changed from that point on, and sighed. This world has been corrupted. The world is sick. Leo looked at the images of the crazed worshippers and thought of Tilly's teacher, Ursula, especially the research she had brought back with her life. In the final days of the Magus Imperium, supernatural powers suffered a backlash, and mages seemed to fall under a curse. This was because the very source of power, the world's foundational design, had been tainted. During this era of fallen gods, the Magus Imperium collapsed. With order gone, the continent descended into a dark age of warring lords, chieftains, and barbarian tribes, a tragic period where human life was as worthless as grass. Leo and Evelyn began to leaf through some of the handwritten manuscripts on the shelves. They contained brief accounts of the war between the gods and the other side, the invading foreign deities, the so-called outer gods, and old ones. As Leo's understanding of this world grew, he learned that there were three categories of beings that could be called gods: the elder gods, the old ones, and the outer gods. First, the outer gods are the most powerful. They hailed from the depths of the cosmos and were, in some cases, the very personification of cosmic laws, like the chaos and entropy symbolized by Nyarlathotep's true form, or the truth represented by the key to the gate. The old ones were not as powerful as the outer gods and did not command cosmic-level laws and authority. However, they were still ancient and terrifying masters of the universe. Some old ones were even avatars of the outer gods, side accounts they used to meddle. So, the primary muscle in this invasion of the outer gods was largely a host of old ones. As for the elder gods, they were simpler. They were the native deities of this world, such as Nodens, the lord of the dreamlands, and the gods depicted in the murals. Their attitudes toward humanity varied, but since this world was their turf, they were, in a sense, on the same side as humanity. After viewing the first few murals, they arrived at the main event and led them to the final few paintings. In the second-to-last mural, Leo saw a familiar deity. The god of light, his head glowing, stood over countless prostrating, devout followers. The chaos and darkness were receding, and order was returning to the world. According to church records, one day, the god of light reappeared in the sky. His power was dazzling and great. He cooperated with the remaining deities and ultimately sealed the evil beings that plagued the world. People rejoiced, and from that point, the dark ages ended, and the luminous age of the church began. Leo looked at and confused. The god of light came back. Evelyn was equally surprised. She instinctively looked back at the earlier murals. But didn't the god of light die during the War of the Gods? Can he be resurrected? And shook her head. That's the one mystery we've never been able to solve. Because another god of light appeared. Another god of light? Even the usually composed Joe couldn't suppress his curiosity. Why are you so sure this god of light wasn't the original one? Does the church believe that too? And nodded, gazing at the deity in the mural. Haven't you noticed the subtle differences in how he is depicted before and after? Leo looked again and then nodded in understanding. The first god of light was bald, his head shining brightly, clearly male. The second had long hair and soft features, androgynous. Helena's little brain was completely confused. Did the god of light get a sex change? And chuckled. If anyone from the Sea of Siston heard you say that, they'd be in a frenzy to burn you at the stake. According to their doctrine, deities are genderless, or can be any gender, because the god of light is the one true God, the incarnation of the great holy light. Leo immediately went to the bookshelf in front of that mural. A handwritten manuscript about the painting was placed there. He flipped through it curiously and learned that various signs did indeed indicate that this god of light was different from the one in the celestial garden. During the Dark Ages, the original faith in the god of light had all but vanished because people could no longer beseech the god for power. This new god of light seemed to appear out of nowhere. According to church history, the system of divine rites he brought, the methods of casting, and even the source of his power were entirely different from before, something any high-level cleric could discern. But since he bore the title of the god of light and had genuinely saved humanity, the new faith quickly revived and grew strong again. Perhaps for power, perhaps for other reasons, the surviving church installed this new patch, and soon the faith of the holy light spread across the continent. After many of the old ones were sealed away by the elder gods, they fell into a long slumber. Humanity rapidly recovered during the age of the church, and the world gradually began to resemble the one Leo was familiar with. But the church's golden age didn't last more than 1,000 years. Leo looked at the next mural. The god of light, in his mission to seal the old ones one by one, was once again corrupted. He was forced to leave this world. Before departing, he left a prophecy for his followers. The old ones would one day reawaken, and the world would once again descend into hell. When he returned, he would bring light and order back to this place. From then on, the church fell into decline. Although the core believers awaited the day of salvation, the church's decay was inevitable. History became clearer from this point. Secular powers gradually broke free from the church's influence. The Wigner Empire rose from the frontiers, and the continent entered an era of great power struggles. Humanity progressed from ignorance, science developed, the supernatural waned, and magitech industry led the world. Seeing all this, Leo had a much clearer picture of this world's true history. He couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The information General Abraham had brought back at the cost of his life was truly valuable. Although he already knew about the outer god invasion, the revelation of two gods of light was a complete surprise. While the others were still absorbed in the murals, Leo quietly approached, and, to be honest, he was now more curious about how the general had managed to bring back such a vast amount of information. After all, everyone knew the previous patriarch had died deep within the holy mountain, his retinue wiped out, without even a body to bring home. You're not curious about the secrets of history, but rather about that, and smiled at him and Evelyn. The partner you've chosen certainly has an unconventional mind, miss. But I have to admit, that is also an important question. And Evelyn looked at her, confused. So how did the previous patriarch bring this information back? A blood thrall, and said simply, "Oh, I see." Evelyn's eyes widened in understanding. "Clever, miss," and smiled. As a direct descendant, you should know that a blood thrall is linked to their master's will, their minds shared. The general's most loyal subordinate at the time, that very blood thrall, was left behind with the main army. As the general read the church's secret texts, that information was rapidly transcribed by the blood thrall. I get it now, Leo nodded. A blood thrall was a truly special existence, like being connected to your master via Bluetooth. So, he said, looking at and a theory taking shape. Ms. And you're the Duke's blood thrall, aren't you? What? This time, not only was Evelyn shocked, but Monica, who was nearby, also rushed over. And his father's blood thrall? Monica stared at her, bewildered. But I remember you were an heir from a branch family, weren't you? Chosen by father because of your excellent talent. And that's why you became the housekeeper who raised us. That was just my cover identity, and said with a wistful smile. I was originally human, saved by the master during the wars. Although I've been by his side for 500 years, the lowly status of a blood thrall is not something that can be openly acknowledged within Thornwood Castle. Hearing her calmly admit her identity, Evelyn frowned. She suddenly realized something. Father probably had other considerations. He didn't want to expose his blood thrall to outsiders, as it would be inconvenient for certain tasks. She subconsciously glanced at Leo, who nodded. Since Anne is the Duke's blood thrall, then he must have seen everything that happened today, and gave Leo a deep look, then smiled at Evelyn with a hint of relief. I apologize for my earlier actions, Miss Evelyn. The partner you've chosen is very clever. You two are a perfect match. With someone like him to take care of you, the master, and I can rest easy. She was, of course, referring to their fight in the office earlier, and said quietly, it's precisely because I was human for 32 years that I know just how short and insignificant a human life is. The sisters I fled with during the war. I watched every single one of them grow old and die. Those human heroes from 500 years ago, no matter how valiant and great they were in life, have long since turned to dust, becoming distant records in old books. And looked at Leo. So, that is why I was so against the two of you getting together at first. And smiled at Leo. But today my opinion of Mr. Sterling has changed. I no longer object to your union. She had been observing everything in secret, so she knew what Leo had done. I told you he was amazing, but you wouldn't believe me. Hearing and praise Leo, Evelyn beamed and looped her arm through his, her smile growing wider with pride. Leo squeezed her hand and quickly asked, so, your attitude also represents the Duke's? Meaning, his lordship approves? And glanced at their intertwined hands and chuckled. What's your hurry? Of course, the master approves. He was thoroughly impressed with you today. Leo couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He had, after all, run off with the man's daughter. His father-in-law's opinion was definitely important. Although the appearance of you and your witch accomplice did create some trouble for the master's counterattack. And said with a sigh, but no matter what, the final result was good, even better than his original plan, and felt that even the Magitech mechanisms he'd secretly installed over the past decade weren't as effective as that terrifying witch outside. Those rebellious, hateful old vampires had been sent scurrying like rats in a sewer. The sight had filled her with a strange sense of satisfaction. Moreover, the church's power had been unexpectedly strong. That feline had actually managed to summon the Sea's Saintess to fight. The rapid rise of the church's power was something the master hadn't anticipated, but thankfully, the witch had been there to hold the line, fighting the Saintess to a standstill. But beyond that, there was another pleasant surprise. Anne's gaze flickered to Monica, who was staring blankly, then returned to Evelyn. Miss Evelyn's performance had left the master's intended successor, Monica, far behind. After today, even if the master wanted to continue supporting Monica, he probably couldn't convince the public. Every vampire, every guest, had witnessed the rise of a new star in the Abraham family. So, Evelyn asked curiously, a blood thrall and master's fates are intertwined. Since you're still alive, does that mean? Leo was also curious about this. If Anne was still here, did that mean the Duke wasn't dead? I'm sorry, miss. And let out a deep sigh. The master was beyond saving long ago. He is truly dead. But you're standing right here in front of me, Evelyn said quickly. But look at me now. And looked down at her own body, her laughter growing more tired. Because the master is dead, I will die soon as well. The only reason you can still hear me speak, hear the master's final arrangements, is because his brain has not yet died. Brain death. Leo frowned, thinking. He remembered hearing about that. After the human body dies, brain cells remain active for a short period, about 5 minutes. But the chaos tonight had lasted for hours. It had been a long time since the Duke's death. Dark magic, and explained, seeing their confusion. If you were to examine the master's body closely, you would find a layer of preservative dark magic has been cast upon it. The master's true farewell has been delayed. This ability is actually used to preserve the freshness of our ingredients. I never thought it would one day be used on him. Leo hadn't expected that. A dark spell that could delay brain death. Of course, it might have something to do with the extraordinary resilience of vampires. But this was just as he had suspected. A mastermind would want to see his plan succeed, and the Duke still had so much to delegate. Wait. Evelyn steadied the increasingly weak, and, if that's the case, isn't there another way? I remember that old emperor in the palace should have been dead long ago. He's only been kept alive by a group of dark mages. Since Father's will is still within you, can't we use some other method to keep you both alive? Evelyn's voice caught with a sob. In truth, she found Anne's departure harder to accept than her father's. This gentle housekeeper had always been the one to care for her, to comfort her, even when she was ostracized by the family, and had never given up on her. For a girl abandoned by her mother at a young age, and was like her true mother. Miss, and gently stroked Evelyn's cheek, smiling. There is no need to cry for me. The heir of the family should be strong. Your father would not want the future leader of the family to be so soft-hearted. What does he know? What does he know? Evelyn's eyes reddened, and she looked up, frustrated. All he ever cared about was his family. He worked his whole life and still ended up betrayed by almost everyone. If he'd been even a little kinder to us, those young vampires wouldn't have been so easily swayed. Those young ones, and scoffed and shook her head. They're of no consequence. It doesn't matter what those mediocrities do. The Master is very pleased with your performance today, Miss Evelyn. My time is running out. There are a few last things I need to tell you. And how much time do you have? Evelyn asked urgently. Anne's voice grew deeper. Perhaps a few hours, perhaps a few days. But it's enough to prepare you for everything that comes next. She looked at the increasingly despondent Evelyn and forced herself to continue. First, after you inherit the Duchy of Thornwood, you can contact your mother's clan, Clan Toreador, in the city of Cain. You will need some high-level support, but do not trust them completely. The vampires of Cain have always coveted our family's power and wealth. That was the source of the conflict between your mother and the Master. How you balance, that will be your challenge. Second, the Duke secretly made a pact with the Sea of Sistun, which is tantamount to betraying the Empire. The king will not let him off easily, so don't even think about extending his life. From the day he set this plan in motion, he was prepared to die. But this is actually a good thing for the new Duchess of Thornwood. And smiled slyly. So what if the former Duke committed treason? The new Duchess of Thornwood has quelled the rebellion, and the former Duke took his own life to atone for his crimes. The Sea of Sistun cannot use the secret pact against you. So, he was the traitor, not you. The Empire needs the Thornwood family, and you have a good relationship with the princess. I expect the king's succession documents will be on their way soon. You will become the rightful Duchess of Thornwood. Third, she said, looking at Evelyn, then at Joe, the Duke has left you a foundation. Several of the prince-level vampires did not participate in the rebellion, though they are much stronger than you. You can use the vampires from Cain to create a system of checks and balances with them. Fourth, and looked around the underground library. Miss, all of this is yours now. Our Abraham family's most important relics are the crown that houses the ancestor and the Codex Sanguine. The latter can allow your power to grow by leaps and bounds. Of course, relics are not omnipotent, or else the Master would not have been unable to break through to the prince level for so long. How far your power goes will depend on your own achievements. After saying all this, Anne's voice became deeper and hoarser. These are the Master's instructions. He is watching, but he is truly ruthless, expressing only these things. So, this final sentence is actually what I want to say to you. She looked at Evelyn and Leo's tightly clasped hands, her smile weary but relieved. After taking care of you for so long, miss, I've finally seen you with someone you can love and who loves you back. I really wish I could see the day you two get married. Returning to the Grand Hall, the night had quietly faded, and a sliver of light was appearing on the eastern horizon. Leo looked at Evelyn. She had been silent on the way back, clearly still thinking about Anne's final words. Leo sensed her mind was in turmoil, so he didn't disturb her, instead turning his gaze to the exhausted guests. Seeing Evelyn appear, a young vampire girl in a maid's uniform approached. Miss Evelyn, she said with a polite and proper smile. I am Ella, head housekeeper, and has instructed that from now on, I will be taking over her duties and will be responsible for your daily needs. The mention of replacing and only worsened Evelyn's mood. Go see to the guests. Evelyn sighed softly. Arrange for people to escort them back to their rooms to rest. And you, miss? Ella asked. You're injured, aren't you? I'm fine. Evelyn waved her off, then saw Headmaster Danton walking toward her. Headmaster Danton's eyes darted between Evelyn and Leo. He asked impatiently, "Is it all over? Are those old vampires all dead?" Clearly, he wouldn't dare go rest until he had an answer. Leo looked out at the brightening sky. Just then, a dark shadow came flying toward them at high speed. It was the witch. After Tilly landed, she casually tossed several bloody heads onto the floor with a few dull thuds. Among them, Leo recognized Aunt Meg's head. "The Blood Moon domain is gone. They had nowhere to hide. I killed them on my way back," Tilly said flatly, as if killing these prince-level vampires was a trivial matter. "Miss Tilly is so strong." Helena's eyes sparkled. At this moment, she truly understood the beauty of power. She looked at the vampires' heads, their eyes wide with disbelief, then at the witch's calm expression. A sense of longing, almost admiration, bloomed in her heart. If she had that kind of strength, she and her brother wouldn't have been chased so miserably after the banquet. Miss Tilly was so strong, and compared to the bossy and condescending Ophelia, Helena much preferred Tilly, who was uncompetitive and had a good personality. Seeing the old vampires were all dead, Leo also breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at Tilly and asked, "Are you okay? Your injuries?" Tilly's mage robes were riddled with holes and covered in blood. Her black hair, singed by some unknown power, was dry and curled, as if she'd been electrocuted. More importantly, the magical energy radiating from her was highly unstable and chaotic. "I'm fine," Tilly waved it off nonchalantly. "I'm probably going to die. Prepare a room for my body in a bit." "Oh, okay." Leo nodded and looked at Evelyn. Evelyn called over the new housekeeper, Ella. "Prepare a quiet, undisturbed room for Miss Tilly." Ella looked confused, but knew not to ask questions and nodded quickly. Wait. Monica thought she had misheard, her eyes widening in disbelief. Was this a joke? Their companion was about to die. And these people were so calm? They were even thinking about where to put the body? Headmaster Danton was clearly just as bewildered. "Does your order of magical arcanists have powerful, regenerative abilities similar to vampires?" "No," Tilly said dismissively. "I'm really going to die." The opponent was very strong. Leo knew that creating a new body was a trivial matter for Tilly. He was more concerned about the battle. "Very strong? You mean that priestess from the Sea of Sistun, Philine? Or the one standing behind her?" "Of course, who else could it be?" Tilly glanced at him. "Your old flame is on the verge of godhood. If we don't stop her soon, the entire continent will be forced back into the ignorant age of the church." Leo couldn't help but facepalm. "Is she really that strong? Even you can't beat her now." "Who said I can't beat her?" Tilly snorted. "As long as she hasn't truly become a god, I'm not afraid of her at all. I just had to resort to this tactic because I wanted a quick resolution." Back in the study, Leo had felt a torrent of magical energy, even from a great distance. He immediately thought of a certain save file at the Divine Research Institute, the time when he had talked Tilly to death. The explosion of all her magic in her out-of-control state had created a torrent that nearly destroyed everything. The situation just now felt very similar. After he asked, Tilly nodded in annoyance. "Yes, that's what I did. But this time, I triggered it voluntarily and managed to pull back at the end. It didn't reach the level I had hoped for, so that priestess managed to escape. My apologies. Her current body was severely damaged, but if she pushed through with daily meditation and care, she could recover within 2 months. However, she had no intention of doing so. A new body was much more convenient. The Order and the Magitech Steam Engine project couldn't do without her. She had so much to do, she barely had time to sleep." "It's fine," Leo shook his head. "As long as you made it back." Tilly must have been forcing herself to fly back with her chaotic magic, not even using teleportation. And yet, she still had the strength to kill those old vampires. The witch was truly terrifying. Then, Tilly looked around, her eyes settling on Leo, as if waiting for everyone else to leave so she could speak to him alone. Led by the housekeeper and maids, the guests left the castle one by one, discussing the night's events. The main tower was full of holes from the earlier battle and was no longer habitable, so they were moved to guest rooms in other parts of the castle. Even after being told the rebellion was over and Thornwood Castle was safe, the guests still looked shaken. Evelyn sighed helplessly. "After such a mess, I don't know how many apologies I'll have to make. But the silver lining is that not a single guest was harmed." "What do you mean no one was harmed?" "I was greatly harmed." Headmaster Danton was indignant. "My old bones were nearly shattered last night, and I almost bashed that royal attendant's head in with a candlestick. Everyone saw it. That's one of the king's favorites. I've lost all face." Evelyn looked at the fuming headmaster and smiled. You seem to be in high spirits, don't you? High spirits? Danton's tone became weary. After offending that fellow, I don't think I'll be keeping my position as headmaster. Looks like I'll be retiring early after all. It won't come to that. Leo clapped the headmaster on the shoulder. The king isn't the type to listen to sycophants. You can rest easy and continue to serve the empire. This country can't run without you. No one can replace the headmaster of Blackwood Academy. Although Gould had invented the standard Ethereum crystal and improved the Magitech steam engine, Headmaster Danton had made significant contributions to the subsequent development of the industry. He had been researching tirelessly for years. At his age, over 70, he should have retired long ago, but everyone knew Blackwood Academy and the Magitech industry couldn't do without him. You certainly know how to flatter, kid. No wonder so many girls like you. Danton was clearly pleased by the compliment. So, it's really all over? He asked again. There's nothing else for me to do. Don't worry. Headmaster, go get some sleep. Evelyn smiled wearily. We've truly neglected you today. How about this? Stay for a few more days. The Abraham family will treat you with the utmost hospitality as an apology. Forget it. Danton looked horrified. You think I'd dare stay in this godforsaken place? I'm packing my bags and leaving today. Well, in that case, Evelyn smiled apologetically. With him saying that, she couldn't very well insist. After Headmaster Danton left, Joe and Monica also took their leave. Evelyn, Monica said with a smile. If there's nothing else for me, I'll head back. It's been a long night, and I'm quite tired. Before she could leave, Evelyn stopped her. What is it? Monica turned, a questioning look in her eyes. Monica, you... Evelyn hesitated for a moment. After today, you'll still help me, right? Leo's gaze also fell on her. He was quite curious about how Monica was feeling right now. After all, this position was originally hers. It would be impossible not to feel some regret. And now Evelyn wanted to make her an ally. Monica was taken aback for a moment, then she smiled. Of course, if the head of the family has any orders, I will naturally do my best. Oh, is that so? Evelyn nodded slowly. I'm glad to hear you say that. Monica quickly assured her. I'm telling the truth. And like I said, I always thought you were impressive, even when we were little. What happened last night only made me admire you more. I have no objections to Father's choice, so I hope you won't hold any resentment toward me. Besides, even if I wasn't convinced, Monica glanced at Leo playfully. I can't beat him, can I? Ha ha. The new leader was legitimate and had a powerful backer. Only a fool who couldn't read the room would oppose her. Monica just hoped she was as magnanimous as she appeared. You said it, Evelyn said with a sly smile. Go get some rest. There will be plenty of family messes to deal with in the future. I'll need you as my right hand. Don't you complain about being tired or go back on your word then. Of course not. Monica smiled and readily agreed. However, Monica, relieved at this moment, probably couldn't have imagined just how horrifically busy she would become as the deputy. After the guests had departed, the grand hall felt empty. Leo was about to ask Tilly what she wanted to say, but his eyes suddenly caught sight of someone who didn't fit the relaxed atmosphere. Not far away, Lainey, lying in a pool of blood, was staring at Evelyn with a look of pure hatred. Why isn't she dead yet? Leo frowned and walked over. Professor, didn't you kill her? You're not thinking of letting her go, are you? Of course not. Evelyn walked over as well. Helena shattered every bone in her body. I just didn't have time to deal with her. Lainey laughed hoarsely, her voice laced with mockery and hatred. Evelyn, if you don't kill me now, when I recover, I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. I'll kill you, avenge Lyles, and make you repay the pain I'm feeling now 100, 1,000 times over. Who is this? What with the big talk? Tilly, annoyed that she was wasting her time, flicked her hand. An unseen force lifted Lainey's body into the air. The shattered bones inside her grated together, and she immediately let out a pained groan. Why do you hate Evelyn so much? Leo frowned, studying her. The source of her hatred had always baffled him. Evelyn was just as confused. I did beat you up when we were little, but you started it, didn't you? You and your brother were always trying to get others to exclude me. Shouldn't I be the one who hates you more? What did I ever do to you? Lainey was completely immobilized, able to do nothing but glare at Evelyn. You don't know. After your mother married into the family, Father never once looked at us properly. And my and Lyles' mother was still alive then. Why? Why did you get all the affection, like a real princess? I accidentally stumbled into the family's forbidden area and was nearly beaten to death by Father. But you went there too, and he just turned a blind eye. And you kept bragging about it to everyone. Why did you get everything? Father's attention, the housekeeper's care, and even She glared at Leo with resentment. Even a man as good as him, who only has eyes for you, a noble from a reclusive clan, willing to do all this for you, to cut a path through thorns and briars, and personally hand you the family throne. Lainey laughed hysterically. Well, now the Abraham family is yours. It's all yours. You must be so pleased with yourself, acting all indifferent on the surface, but inside, you're ecstatic, aren't you? Hypocrite. Ha ha ha, hypocrite. Her crazed laughter echoed through the empty hall. Leo found the sound incredibly annoying. All right, that's enough of your meltdown. Leo used magic to dislocate her jaw. After it popped out of place, she could only make garbled noises, and finally it was quiet. He walked closer, looking directly into Lainey's eyes. First, your mother's misfortune was entirely the Duke's fault, not Evelyn's or her mother's. The person you should hate most is your father, isn't it? Leo scoffed. Why don't you take revenge on your father? Because you can't beat him? Hee. So, you know to pick on the weak. For all your righteous talk, you're no different from the Duke. Second, he continued, the attention Evelyn received came from her strength. Your so-called hatred is nothing but jealousy. And as I see it, after Evelyn left the family, you had over 50 years of opportunity. But what did you do? You didn't cherish that opportunity. You should have known the Duke would never betray the king. The moment you conspired with the family's traitors, you lost your right to inherit the Thornwood estate. That's why the Duke had to choose Monica in the end. Lainey stared fixedly at Leo, who was just inches away. His gaze, however, softened as he looked at Evelyn. Finally, have you ever wondered why so many people like the professor? Evelyn, who had been listening silently, was suddenly taken aback. Although we had a little misunderstanding at the beginning, Leo said, shaking his head with a smile as he recalled their past. I think that no matter how many times I met her, no matter the place or the circumstances, I would slowly be drawn to certain qualities in Professor Evelyn. Our relationship would still end up just like this. Leo smiled and winked at Evelyn. She rolled her eyes dramatically, but the corners of her mouth turned up slightly. She didn't show a strong reaction, but inside, she was overjoyed. As for you, Leo's gaze returned to Lainey, his expression one of disgust. You're arrogant, consumed by jealousy, and your heart is dark and ugly. I wouldn't take you if you were given to me for free. Lainey's eyes were bloodshot. Also, Leo added with a playful grin, suddenly telling her a secret. I'm not actually a vampire. The whole reclusive clan thing was a lie, a trick. If you had known earlier and told everyone, it might have caused a huge uproar and completely ruined Evelyn's chances of becoming the head of the family. You know? Lainey's eyes widened. She struggled violently against her shattered body, her bloodshot eyes filled with even more resentment. A surge of blood-red energy flowed from Leo's hand, forming a crimson dagger in his palm. Professor, should I do it for you? Or do you want to do it yourself? I'll do it, Evelyn said, shaking her head and stepping forward. My business, I'll handle it myself. Under Lainey's hateful and resentful gaze, Evelyn gave a cold smile. The crimson blade plunged accurately into her abdomen, shattering her blood core in a single strike. Clever little fool. This blood debt is yours to pay. D. Lainey's expression twisted for a moment, then her eyes dimmed, finally turning into the dull, gray orbs of a corpse. Even the most deep-seated hatred vanished into thin air. Physical annihilation was always the simplest solution. Looking at Lainey's body lying in a pool of blood, Tilly pondered for a moment. High-ranking vampires are excellent materials for potions. Can't let go to waste. I'll take this body. Be my guest, Evelyn said casually. You can have Mez and the other old vampires' bodies too. Excellent. Tilly thanked her immediately and went to deal with Lainey's body. But as she looked at the corpse, which retained its hateful expression even in death, she shot a thoughtful glance at Leo. Looking at it this way, the Duke really was a scumbag. Leo, do you see? This is what happens when you don't handle your family relationships properly. I'm not like the Duke, Leo said, exasperated. By the way, didn't you have something to tell me? Oh, right. Tilly nodded. I'm in a hurry. I still have to deal with my own body in a bit. She looked at Leo, recalling a scene from her battle with Iliad deep in the mountains. She said she wants to see you. She wants to see me? Leo frowned at Tilly. When? Where? At the mention of the sea's saintess wanting to see Leo, Evelyn immediately grew tense. That Ilia woman isn't going to come looking for him here, is she? She asked, anxiously scanning the castle. The Magitech defenses were out of power, and the witch was severely injured. If the saintess took this opportunity to cause trouble, there would be no one left to stop her. Don't be so nervous, Tilly shook her head. She just said she wants to meet Leo in Blackwater. No specific time was set, but it should be soon. Blackwater. The name made Leo pause. Upon hearing it, Helena's expression tightened. Leo looked at her, knowing what that place meant. It was the last dungeon he had cleared in the first playthrough. The town was located in the Velan Kingdom, on the far western edge of the continent. And for them, Blackwater was the direct cause of his disappearance from that world. The place was indeed strange, a bizarre, mechanics-based dungeon. At the time, he had only had Tilly and Elia with him. Logically, a brute force physical healer and a powerhouse mage should have been enough. Who would have thought they would get stuck, dying over and over, unable to pass? Leo never expected Elia to choose that place for their meeting. It gave him a sense of destiny. All the love and hate had started there, and it seemed it would end there too, like a fated final battle. And with the storm clouds of war gathering on the horizon, he had a strong premonition that something big was coming. That was why he was so eager for everyone around him to increase their strength. Seeing her brother's serious expression, Helena anxiously gripped his wrist, her voice trembling as if from a traumatic memory. "Brother, please don't go. I'm begging you, brother. Don't go there." A mist formed in her large, blue eyes. "I don't want you to go to that place, brother. You just came back. I really don't want you to disappear again. Let's just stay in our old house and live happily. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to worry about anything, okay?" "Helena." Leo stroked her soft hair. "Don't be scared. I haven't agreed yet." Helena's eyes were filled with tears, on the verge of crying. She gripped his arm tightly, as if afraid he would vanish again. Leo sighed inwardly and looked at Tilly. "What else did she say? And can I just not see her?" "Not see her?" Tilly smiled. "That would be even better. To be honest, I don't want you to go back to that place either, although I'm not afraid of those strange monsters there anymore. But," she thought for a moment, then added with a puzzled look, "Elia left one more message. She said that even if you don't want to see her, you'll end up begging to see her. I don't know where she gets that confidence." That woman actually said that. Helena grew even more anxious, hugging her brother's arm tighter. "What is she going to do to you, brother? Is she threatening us?" Leo also looked confused. Tilly shook her head. "I don't know. That woman is so secretive now. Who knows what grand conspiracy she's plotting?" After relaying the message, the witch looked directly at Leo, her eyes determined. "But don't worry. As long as I'm here, I won't let her do anything to you. I'll prepare a room for your new body right away." Evelyn knew the extent of the witch's power. "Once you've recovered, you'll definitely be able to beat her at your full strength, right?" Tilly smiled faintly. "I will win." For the next 3 days, the guests who had attended the birthday banquet left one by one. Although the Abraham family was large, without the lively atmosphere, the vast Thornwood castle felt empty. Carrying a tray of food, Leo walked down a deep corridor. After a brief chat with a nobleman he had run into, the last group of guests departed. The turmoil at the vampire castle was finally completely over. Though it felt like the end of a party, for Professor Evelyn, a new challenge was just beginning. Leo carefully pushed open the office door. Evelyn was buried under a pile of documents, looking troubled, and was sleeping peacefully in a chair beside her, while her little assistant, Monica, was slumped on the other side, frantically scratching her head. It looked like she was doing the accounting, and a small pile of hair had already fallen to the floor. Leo gently placed the breakfast on the desk, looking at Monica with amusement. A few days ago, she had been quite excited about being promoted to the family's deputy. But after 3 days, her spirit was broken. "Has Monica been doing the accounts all day?" Leo asked casually, but Monica didn't even have the energy to reply. "How much wealth did those dandies squander? It's so annoying. How many bad debts are there?" Leo walked over curiously and took a look, then chuckled. The Abraham family's financial situation was truly dire. Professor Evelyn had thought that becoming the head of the family meant she could enjoy a life of luxury, but it seemed she couldn't escape the fate of being broke no matter where she went. Leo then looked at the napping, and for the past few days, she had been teaching Evelyn how to handle official business hand in hand. She would often doze off, and each time, her sleep was longer than the last. He tiptoed over to Evelyn's side, not wanting to wake, and everyone knew she didn't have much time left, and they didn't want to overwork her. "Professor, time to eat." Leo gently placed the tray beside her. "Oh my God, is it morning already?" Evelyn looked at the sky and yawned, then complained in a low voice. "It's a good thing I have you with me, Leo. Otherwise, dealing with all this every day would be so boring." The Abraham family owned more than just Thornwood Castle. Many of the surrounding towns were their territory, and they also controlled several branch families and numerous businesses throughout the empire. All of these required a handover, and it was normal for Evelyn, who was new to all this, to find it difficult. Evelyn looked at the food before her, but had no appetite. She looked up at Leo pitifully. Leo, I haven't recovered yet. Can you feed me? Leo gently held the glass of milk to her lips. Evelyn's mouth curved into a happy smile, and she took small sips. After she finished, a white milk mustache lingered on her lips, and her mood seemed to improve. Leo, I'm hungry. Leo broke off a piece of soft bread and held it to her mouth. Evelyn happily took a bite. After enjoying a session of being fed, Evelyn tiredly touched her shoulder. Leo, my shoulder is sore. It's uncomfortable. Leo stood behind her and began to gently and thoughtfully massage her shoulders. Evelyn giggled, enjoying Leo's service. Not bad, a little harder. Yes, up there, up there. Down there, down there. That feels so good. Hey, Leo, why are you rubbing randomly again? Where are you rubbing? Just tell me if it feels good or not, Professor. Leo teased. Shameless pervert. The couple's playful banter made Monica slowly raise her head. She glared at them resentfully. What's with these two? Aren't they busy with the handover? Why are they stuck together like glue every day? Are they even working? And hasn't Evelyn's body recovered already? Why is she still having Leo come here to take care of her every day? The more Monica watched, the more annoyed she became. She was tired too, you know? Why wasn't there anyone to take care of her? Leo ignored the third wheel's resentful gaze. He had been taking meticulous care of Evelyn for the past few days and knew she was just pretending to be sick. Evelyn had actually recovered on the second day. She just didn't want him to leave. They both knew that after these few short days, they might not see each other for a long time. Did Ophelia urge you to go back again today? Evelyn frowned. The semester is starting? What a lame excuse. What does the start of the semester at Blackwood have to do with her? Blackwood is participating in an exhibition, and the school is preparing for it. Leo shook his head with a smile. It had nothing to do with him. It was just an excuse Ophelia had come up with. She just wanted him to come home quickly. I won't let you leave. Evelyn narrowed her eyes fiercely. Let her wait. Besides, she still owes me one. I'm not done with her. Leo knew she was talking about the conspiracy to put her in power. He had a part in it too, so he could only smile guiltily. Professor Evelyn had been so busy with these matters that she hadn't even had time to look at the codex anguin that could greatly enhance her power. The official duties were giving her a headache. Leo could completely understand her mood. Oh, right? Where's your little shadow? Evelyn looked at Leo irritably, then asked, Helena? Leo thought for a moment. The witch is using dark magic to reconstruct her body and asked her to be a consultant. Asked her to be a consultant? Evelyn chuckled. What could your sister possibly know? 3 ways to cook an egg. Leo felt that Helena was being severely underestimated. To be honest, he didn't know what the witch had called Helena for either. Asking her to guard the room as a bodyguard seemed normal, but a consultant. Neither of them could figure out, so they dropped it. Evelyn glanced at the sky outside the window, her dark green eyes glinting. A sudden idea struck her. Oh, right, Leo. The weather is so nice. I'll take you to a good place. Leo looked at her. What good place? It's a place I used to go to when I was little. Evelyn said mysteriously. It's my secret base. Leo glanced helplessly at the pile of documents on her desk. I mean, we could, but all this work. It's fine, it's fine. Evelyn's expression turned mischievous. She shot a sly look at Monica. We still have her, don't we? Leo looked silently at Monica, who was so frustrated she was about to tear her hair out, and mourned her future for 3 seconds. Poor deputy. Stuck with such a hands-off boss who loves to slack off. And Monica, watching the sinisterly smiling Evelyn walk toward her, felt a sudden lurch in her stomach. Monica, I'm not feeling well. Dachi. The document's on my desk. Can you help me take care of them? I'll be right back, I promise. Don't look at me like that. I'll really be right back. Monica collapsed into her chair. After Evelyn dragged Leo away, the new housekeeper, Ella, walked into the office carrying a stack of files. She looked around, puzzled, seeing only the sleeping and the miserable-looking Monica, scratching her head. Miss, where's the matriarch? Monica looked up, exasperated. She ran off with her boy toy. Ella made a confused sound. Then, these accounts. The new housekeeper hesitated, then piled everything onto Monica's desk. The matriarch had said that in her absence, Miss Monica was in charge. So, it was only logical that everything should be handed over to her. There's still more. Monica let out a wail. Shouldn't she be doing this? Who's the matriarch here, anyway? Monica suddenly realized she had been tricked. Tricked by that woman, Evelyn. Meanwhile, Evelyn led Leo away from Thornwood Castle, following the foot of the snowy mountains until they reached a manor not far from a human town. Even in the height of summer, the climate here was cool. Leo gazed into the distance at a glacial lake that shimmered like a blue mirror. The manor by the lake wasn't large, but nestled between the mountain and the water, the scenery was breathtaking. This is the manor my mother bought back then. I used to come here to play all the time when I was little. Evelyn looked at the azure lake with nostalgia, her eyes shimmering as she reminisced. Whenever my mother and father argued, she would bring me here. Father would always come to take us back. But the last time, after my mother told me some things, she never came back. So this place became mine. She squeezed Leo's hand, showing it off proudly. The view is pretty nice, isn't it? Leo watched Evelyn smile as she continued to tell stories from her childhood. During that time, her mother had abandoned her, and her father no longer doted on her as he once had. Little Evelyn's status in the family plummeted, and she was ostracized. Whenever she felt wronged, she would sneak out to this manor because it was free from all the family drama. She would stay for days, and no one at home cared. In the end, it was always and who came to bring the reluctant girl back. But as she spoke of these things, there was no bitterness in her expression. Leo listened quietly. It was the first time she had told him so much about her past. They entered the manor's main hall. Because and sent people to clean it periodically, it was still relatively tidy. Evelyn excitedly gave Leo a tour. The place was filled with traces of her childhood. This must be when you started getting interested in the human world, Professor, Leo said, picking up a small toy. Since the manor was close to human territory, there were many trinkets Evelyn had bought from human markets. Yes. Evelyn turned to look at Leo and found him staring intently at something on a table, a strange smile on his face. What are you looking at? Leo had spotted a photo frame on the table. When he saw the adorable, younger version of Evelyn, he was rooted to the spot. Professor, you were so cute when you were little. The younger Evelyn had a round face with baby fat, and her large, dark green eyes were like jewels, exceptionally cute. And from the photo, it was clear that Professor Evelyn had that tsundere air about her even as a child, her small mouth stubbornly pursed, as if she was very reluctant to be dragged into a picture. Don't look at that. I was so fat, so ugly. Evelyn felt like he was looking at her embarrassing old photos and pushed the frame down with a helpless expression. Let me show you something else. No way. I think it's adorable. Leo reluctantly tore his eyes away. The cuteness of the lowly version of the professor was almost criminal. Next, Evelyn showed Leo her collection, dresses and bags with a very vintage feel, filling several wardrobes. It seemed her shopping addiction had started back then. After all, from that point on, Evelyn had become isolated. Perhaps going on shopping sprees in the human world was her only remaining source of joy. Together, they lit a fire in the hearth. The crackling flames warmed the slightly cool living room. The two of them sat on the sofa, nestled together, silently admiring the blue lake outside the window. After a long while, Evelyn gently rested her head on Leo's shoulder. You'll miss me after you leave, won't you? Of course, Leo said with a smile. How could I not miss you, Professor? Evelyn pouted. Maybe not. If you find someone new, or if that gentle and kind Saintess comes back, you won't miss me anymore. I'll just be here in the cold north, all alone, staring into space, waiting like I waited for my mother, waiting for someone who will never come. Evelyn's tone was both mournful and pitiful. Leo couldn't help but laugh at her act. Just as he was about to reassure her, she suddenly said, Maybe I should ask the witch to make me a ring too, so I can monitor you anytime, anywhere. That way, you'll never escape my grasp. Please don't. The mention of a ring made Leo speechless. Why did everyone want to monitor him? He had a right to privacy, you know? Oh, feeling guilty. Evelyn leaned closer to Leo, her eyes narrowing. I was just kidding. Asking Tilly for a ring? That's impossible. Not at all. Leo said guiltily. I'm not guilty at all. He looked into the dark green eyes, so close to his, and said seriously, I promise I'll think about you every day, Professor. Once I learn teleportation, I'll come crash for dinner every day. You'll probably get tired of me then. Who knows how long it'll take you to learn. I'm not counting on you. Evelyn's eyes darted around, then she suddenly giggled. Once I sort out the family business, I'll dump all the trivial stuff on Monica. Then I can go out and play again. I can't miss the limited edition releases at the luxury shops in New Haven every season. Leo said silently, Somehow, I feel like the bags are more appealing to you than I am. Evelyn burst out laughing. I'm kidding. There's so much family crap to deal with. I can't get away even if I wanted to. In a few days, my mother's people from the city of Kane will arrive, and Thornwood Castle will be in an uproar again. Thornwood Castle was bound to face endless bickering between the two factions. The thought of all that mess made Evelyn slump onto the sofa in frustration. Ugh, so annoying. She rubbed her temples. Are you not feeling well, Professor? Leo touched her forehead worriedly. Want me to rub it for you? Evelyn sat up, pushing him away with a look of disgust. No, as soon as you start, you'll just start rubbing all over the place. As she sat up abruptly, her ample chest swayed with the movement. Leo sneakily glanced in that direction, his expression regretful. Fine, I won't. Evelyn saw right through Leo's dirty thoughts. Her eyes narrowed mischievously. Leo, do you like my chest that much? Leo nodded honestly, his eyes now openly staring at the magnificent pair before him, beginning a serious appraisal. Even under loose-fitting casual clothes, they still bulged prominently. The proud curve made one's imagination run wild about the beautiful sight that would be revealed underneath. Evelyn hadn't expected Leo to admit it so directly. She rolled her eyes. You lecherous student. I remember when we first met, you were always sneaking peeks at my chest, weren't you? Huh? You knew. Leo looked at her. I thought you were too busy trying to turn me into your blood thrall back then. Your eyes were practically shooting flames. Only a fool wouldn't have noticed. Evelyn huffed, then leaned closer to Leo with a grin. Since you like it so much, would you like a closer look today? Leo's spirits lifted. Yes, yes. Evelyn giggled and whispered in his ear. I'm not showing you. With that, she sat up, making a move to grab her coat from across the living room. It's getting late. I still have work to do. Let's go. But before she could take a single step, Leo pushed her down onto the sofa. Trying to leave? Leo glared at her fiercely. You've got my little brother all worked up. You're not going anywhere. Your little brother. Evelyn was confused. Who's that? You'll find out in a bit, Leo said with a smile. Evelyn looked at him, and after a moment's thought, her cheeks began to flush. She tried to break free from his grip. Leo, you're holding me too tight. Loosen up a bit. I was teasing you. I'm really not leaving. Leo loosened his grip slightly, and Evelyn immediately sat up. She looked at him with dissatisfaction, rubbing her pale wrist. Honestly, what's the rush? Did you really think I brought you here today just to look at the lake? The lake isn't as beautiful as you, Professor. Leo stared at her, his gaze growing more intense. Is that so? Evelyn's face was flushed. She leaned closer to Leo again, sniffing his neck. You're very handsome too, Leo. Today, I can finally eat you. Feeling the pulse in his veins, the rush of blood in his vessels, Evelyn's breathing became more rapid. Professor. Leo had a feeling she was about to take a bite out of him. This eat seemed to be literal, and she did bite him. Leo clutched the bite mark on his neck and glared at Evelyn. She just laughed. I've wanted to do that for so long. You have no idea, Leo, the amount of restraint it takes for a vampire to have a delicious meal dangling in front of her every day. Huh? Leo gave a cold smile and went straight for his target. Then do you know how much restraint it takes for me when you walk around the old house without wearing anything underneath? His voice became muffled as he buried his face in her magnificent chest. My turn to eat you. Evelyn was ticklish and started laughing, rolling around on the sofa with Leo. Wait a minute. Let's shower first. I've been looking at ledgers all night. I'm all sweaty. Leo, are you listening to me? Leo lifted his head and sniffed. Sweat? Where? You smell amazing. Liar. He buried his head again. Continuing. No. Evelyn managed to push Leo away, pouting. First, we shower. Leo, simmering with frustration, looked at her helplessly. Fine. Evelyn grinned and held out her arms. I'm tired. I don't want to walk. Carry me. Leo obliged, scooping her up into his arms. Evelyn happily wrapped her arms around his neck and began giving directions. It's on the second floor. Yes, the last room. We need to heat the water first. Hey, wait. Why aren't you leaving? Leo's eyes narrowed with a wicked grin. With a bang, he slammed the bathroom door shut. We're doing this together, of course. Happy times are always fleeting. In the second week at Thornwood Castle, on a bright, sunny day, Leo and Helena bid farewell to the Abraham family. Helena, Emily ran over, reluctant to see her go, and hugged her tightly. You have to come back and see me, okay? Otherwise, it'll be so boring here. After so many years, Emily had finally found a good friend she could talk to, someone of a similar age. But after such a short time together, they had to say goodbye. Perhaps it was the first time in her long life as a vampire that she had experienced the taste of parting. Don't worry, I'll come see you. Helena grinned. Besides, you can come visit me in New Haven anytime. You know where I live, right? Oh, Emily glanced back at her mother. But mother doesn't let me go out whenever I want. Silly. Helena tapped her on the head, and gestured toward Evelyn. Forgot who's in charge of your family now. Oh, right. A smile returned to Emily's face. I can ask Sister Evelyn. She definitely won't stop me from visiting you. She'll probably be dying to sneak out and visit you guys herself. Speaking of which, Emily glanced at Leo beside her and whispered conspiratorially in Helena's ear, I hope the next time I see you, you'll have your brother over. Hey, hey, hey. Helena's cheeks flushed, but her tone was firm. Of course. Don't underestimate me. Emily nodded sagely, like a little adult. Finally showing some ambition. I hope you don't disappoint your teacher. While the two girls were chattering, Leo was saying his goodbyes to Monica, Joe, and the others. So you're using teleportation to go back. In that case, we won't prepare a carriage, Monica said. Joe stepped forward. He held a great deal of respect for a powerful supernatural being so closely tied to their family. Thank you for everything. The Abraham family owes you a debt. Please have a safe journey. Leo looked at the few vampires at the castle gate and joked, you might need to cash in on that debt sooner than you think. As they were leaving, the Duchess suddenly looked at him and asked, Leo, do you really not have any brothers? Don't get me wrong, I'm just curious. Leo looked at the Duchess, whose private life was rather colorful, and said flatly, no. Oh, the Duchess finally sighed with regret. Monica looked at Leo, then nudged Evelyn. Aren't you going to say something? Your lover is leaving. Why aren't you saying anything? Everything that needs to be said has been said. Evelyn shook her head. It's not like he's not coming back. What's there to say? Seeing her nonchalant expression, Monica was full of disbelief. She whispered with a chuckle, you say that, but inside, you're so sad you're about to cry. Aren't you? Who says? Evelyn huffed, putting on the dignified air of a family head. However, her defenses crumbled the second Leo stepped forward and hugged her. Professor, I miss you already. Leo held her tightly. Evelyn felt his warm embrace, her eyes shimmering, her smile soft and helpless. Isn't this a little cheesy? Everyone's watching. Leo pulled back and winked at her. See you next time. As he reluctantly let go, Evelyn watched his retreating back. See you next time. Leo and Helena walked toward the teleportation circle Tilly had already prepared. A halo of blue, magical light flared. A vampire's feast mission complete. In Chapter 290, the circular runes of the teleportation circle slowly faded as Leo and the others returned to the old house on Riverfront Road. The summer weather in New Haven was muggy, which was a bit of a shock to Leo, who had just come from the snowy northern mountains. He took off his coat and looked around the empty house. After being away for over half a month, the place was covered in dust. Ophelia was clearly not here. She usually didn't stay when he wasn't around. After all, both the royal palace and her private estate were far more comfortable than this place. The esteemed princess had complained about his shabby little room more than once. We're finally home. It's good to be home. Helena's face lit up with a brilliant smile as soon as she returned. Then, like an energetic little maid, she opened the windows to air out the place and diligently started dusting the living room. It's so hot. Tilly suddenly missed the cool climate of Thornwood Castle. She thought for a moment, snapped her fingers, and a wave of magic cooled the living room considerably. Then, her purple eyes shifted to Helena. Tilly opened her mouth, intending to use a cleaning spell to help. But seeing Helena humming a little tune, so clearly enjoying her chores, she decided against it. Helena is such a diligent, good girl, Tilly thought. Leo opened the front door. The summer sun was a bit blinding. He squinted and pulled a thick stack of newspapers from the mailbox, then sat back down on the sofa and began to flip through them idly. While catching up on the major and minor events of the past few weeks in New Haven, he also checked his mission rewards. The system notification had popped up at Thornwood Castle, but he had been too busy saying goodbye to the professor to look at it carefully. 1. Choose any attribute to increase by 20. Leo thought for a moment and put 15 points into magic, using the rest to shore up his weaknesses. Attributes: Strength, 50, Constitution, 30, Agility, 50, Charisma, 100, Insight, 49, Sanity, 45, Magic, 35. He had finally corrected his stats a bit from being a lopsided humanoid male succubus. This panel was now comparable to the official supernatural agents at the BSI. Of course, this was just his normal state. In a real fight, he had other cards to play. His true strength was now far greater than his attribute panel suggested. 2. Random low-tier talent reward. Night Stalker, Vampire. The night is the domain of the vampire. Moving in darkness greatly increases stealth and agility, making it difficult to be detected by enemies. 3. Random mid-tier skill reward. Elchigar School of Healing and Ancient. primal nature magic, collected and improved by the Magic Association. When cast, it accelerates wound healing, stops bleeding, and restores stamina for the target. 4. Random high-tier skill reward. Elchigar School of Teleportation, Runestone. By casting on a runestone with inscribed coordinates, you can instantly return to the recorded point. Teleportation range is the northern continent. Casting cannot be interrupted, can carry up to 3 accompanying targets. Leo was surprised that the system had rewarded him with 2 spells from the Elchigar School. This school's magic seemed to be all high-level, much more profound than the spells in Gould's Book of Magic. Fortunately, the skill reward meant he mastered them instantly, no learning required. The healing spell wasn't very useful for Leo with his vampire talent, but he could use it on his companions, potentially saving a life at a critical moment. He never thought he would be able to moonlight as a church priest, healing the sick. And speaking of Elchigar, that was the god of magic Tilly always mentioned, the mortal who was said to have ascended to godhood. The Magic Association in the skill description was the predecessor of the Order of Magical Arcanists, the official magic organization during the era of the Magus Imperium. In addition to all this, there was one more expected reward. Evelyn Affinity, 100 Affinity Reward, Containment Voucher /1. In recognition of your efforts in managing the sanctuary, partial second stage permissions are now unlocked. Outside the sanctuary, this voucher can be considered an extension of the sanctuary's containment authority. After selecting a target and meeting the containment conditions, you can immediately contain them. This was the first time Leo had received a reward related to the Anomaly Containment Sanctuary. The utility of this item was immense. With this voucher, he no longer had to trick someone into his old house. Leo grew more and more excited. He even had the urge to drag Tilly to the Sea of Sistun right now and directly contain that meddlesome pink-haired woman. Professor Evelyn was truly his angel. The 50 Affinity Reward had saved him from his sister's clutches multiple times, and the 100 Affinity Reward had just changed the rules of the game. Was this the power of the one true heroine of the second playthrough? But then again, what did unlock second stage mean? Leo wondered, could the sanctuary evolve into another form in the future? As he pondered this, the rich aroma of black tea wafted over. Leo took the cup and said, "Thanks, Helena. You're welcome," Tilly replied with a smile. Huh. Leo paused, only then realizing it was the witch's hand that had given him the tea. He found it a bit strange. It was always Helena who quietly made him tea when he was reading the paper. The constantly busy researcher, Tilly never had time for such things. What was even stranger was that Tilly was now staring at him, her purple eyes unblinking, making him feel uncomfortable. Leo put down the cup. "Tilly, what is it? Do you need something?" Tilly hesitated for a long while before she finally stammered. Don't you notice any change in me?" "A change?" Leo had no idea what she was talking about. A faint blush appeared on Tilly's cheeks. She nodded shyly. "I guess." Leo looked at her face suspiciously. "I guess there's a bit of a change." Right. The witch looked up, delighted. Leo nodded silently. "You got prettier." He wasn't just being sweet. Tilly had genuinely become more beautiful, with a refreshed look. Of course, it wasn't because she had put on makeup or had plastic surgery. It was because her new body didn't have dark circles under her eyes, nor the exhaustion of someone who had pulled all-nighters for weeks. It made sense. This new body was only a few days old, fresh out of the box. Naturally, it didn't have the dull skin and huge bags under the eyes that came from long-term sleep deprivation. "Oh, is that so?" Tilly didn't seem to have gotten the answer she wanted. She subconsciously straightened her back. "Yeah." Leo poked her cheek. Her skin was as smooth and white as a peeled egg. He couldn't resist touching it again. "Stop it." Tilly's expression fell. "I worked on this for so long. Can you really not see it at all?" Leo couldn't help but smile. All right, I see it. Your chest got bigger." He had to admit, compared to her previously flat chest, which was similar to Helena's, there was now a noticeable curve. Her chest had indeed gotten a little bigger. But, for him, it was just a little. He couldn't blame Tilly. After personally experiencing the magnificence of Professor Evelyn, normal sizes just didn't impress him anymore. "Not bad, right? You like it, right?" The witch beamed, then grabbed Leo's hand. "Here, feel it. I did exactly what you said. I wasn't greedy, just a little bigger. I did it." Leo chuckled. It was just a random line he had used to tease her in the Dreamlands, but she had actually taken it to heart. "So, when you used life magic to reconstruct your body, you asked Helena to be a consultant specifically for this?" Leo asked. Tilly nodded emphatically. Leo mumbled, "Looks like Helena was still being conservative." "Wait, are they still too small?" Tilly started to fret. "Should I die again?" No, don't. Leo quickly stopped her. This is perfect. Bigger wouldn't suit you. Oh, really? Tilly's face grew redder. I thought you only liked them big. Big has its advantages, and so does small, Leo said with a straight face. Besides, I like you, not your chest. Honestly, the witch's unique brand of intense beauty was one of a kind. Why was she always comparing her own perceived flaws to other people's strengths? Tilly gave him a sweet smile, her mood inexplicably brightening. Well, you can get back to your paper. I'm going to get back to my work. Back to tinkering with that steam engine? Leo asked. Yep, Tilly nodded. That trip to the vampire castle set me back quite a bit. You know how tight and precious my time is. You have no idea what a monumental research breakthrough I'm about to achieve. Seeing her so serious and dedicated, Leo felt an overwhelming urge to tease her. Of course, he quipped. So precious, you don't even have time for your favorite practical anatomy lessons anymore. Tilly seemed to recall a mortifyingly intimate memory and immediately covered her face. What are you talking about? Who wants to take that class? Just read your paper. I'm busy. I'm leaving. See you later. The witch vanished from Leo's sight in a flash, as if fleeing the scene. The newspaper fluttered in the breeze she left behind. Helena, having just finished tidying up her room, walked over curiously, wiping sweat from her brow. Brother, what's wrong with the witch? Did you two have a fight? It's nothing. Leo picked the paper up from the floor. Just reading the news. Oh, Helena nodded obediently. The news had been particularly exciting for the past 2 weeks. Leo glanced at the main headline, which took up the largest part of the front page. Sea of Sistun delegation harbored dangerous elements with malicious intent toward the Empire. Since Elia's conspiracy had been exposed at Thornwood Castle, the Sistun delegation, the first to visit the Wigner Empire in a century, had been immediately detained. Of course, the dangerous elements was likely just an excuse cooked up by the government. When an enemy was about to declare war, you didn't just let their diplomats walk free. The delegation members were now being held in a residence near the embassy, a form of house arrest. As someone who had witnessed the rebellion at Thornwood Castle firsthand, Leo knew more of the hidden details. The diplomatic mission had been a front. Elia's true goal was the northern border, where she had dispatched a secret envoy to forge an alliance with the Duke. Although her primary objective had failed, she had still managed to severely destabilize the region. Leo continued flipping through the paper. The second major story was about the restless winter kingdoms to the north. They had raided a Wigner merchant caravan on the border, and their armies were mobilizing on a large scale. Tensions were escalating. With the transfer of power within the Abraham family, who guarded the northern frontier, it was indeed the perfect opportunity for an invasion. Public opinion within the empire was in an uproar. The Northern Army Corps was already stationed at major fortresses, and there were rumors that some were advising King Charlton II to reinstate the Abraham family's wartime authority to command their private forces. Leo knew that during the Wigner Empire's rise, General Abraham's special unit had been legendary. It was an army composed entirely of anomalies. At night, the phantom-like bloodkin had assassinated countless enemy commanders. He just wasn't sure if the younger generation of vampires could shoulder that responsibility now. Professor Evelyn was probably getting a massive headache over it in her office at this very moment. Beyond these major events, there was one smaller article that hadn't generated much buzz but caught his attention for some reason. The Imperial Industrial Exposition was in full swing at the Crystal Palace in the Whitechapel district. The tension on the border hadn't dampened the annual event, which was the foundation of Wigner's continental dominance. Numerous universities, research institutions, and major corporations were exhibiting. King Charlton II himself was scheduled to attend in a week to encourage the empire's booming magitech industry. From Hager's Palace to the Whitechapel district, one in the south, one in the north. That's a long way. Leo smelled something off. With the situation this tense, why is the old man leaving the safety of his palace to wander around? It wasn't that he was a conspiracy theorist, but if he were Elia and wanted to cause trouble for Wigner, the best way would be to replicate the chaos of Thornwood Castle. The moment the king died, his 3 heirs would ignite a massive power struggle in New Haven. The thought would make that woman grin from ear to ear. Assassinating the king at the Industrial Exposition was a perfect opportunity. Countless magitech machines, weapons, and Ethereum crystals would be on display. If someone set off an explosion. TSK. At that thought, Leo immediately stood up and walked to the entryway to put on his shoes. While he didn't particularly care if the king lived or died, he needed to talk to Ophelia and see what she thought. And he figured it was a good chance to talk about Elia, too. Meanwhile, In the holy city of Sistun, Priestess Philine walked briskly toward the Cathedral of Holy Light. Whenever she returned to report to the sea after a mission, she had to cross the magnificent square, large enough to hold 100,000 faithful. Though she was intimately familiar with the holy city that countless believers revered, she couldn't help but feel awed every time she passed through. White city walls rose from the ground, protecting the sprawling metropolis. Everything here was immaculate white. Directly in front of her, in the center of the square, stood a 100-meter-tall statue of the God of Light. The God of Light, Balder, looked down upon the masses with an expression of compassion. The ethereal hymns of the nuns from the Cathedral of Holy Light, accompanied by the heavy tolling of the bell tower, drifted over, enveloping the entire city in a sacred and solemn atmosphere. Philine took a deep breath. The ambience finally steadied her hurried pace. She stepped into the Cathedral of Holy Light, passed through the throngs of worshippers, and looked up. At last, she saw her again, presiding over the Mass. The Saintess Elia Christine. She wore the pure white robes of the sea, a platinum coronet engraved with a relief of the God of Light, and held the papal scepter symbolizing the sea's authority. Her divine and majestic aura was so powerful it was difficult to look at her directly. Philine bowed her head deeply and waited in silence until the Mass concluded. After the Mass, the worshippers finally dispersed, leaving only her and the Saintess in the vast cathedral. As the sound of light footsteps approached, Philine dared to raise her head again. Silky pink hair cascaded down to her waist like a waterfall. Her eyes, the color of pale gold, brought a sense of peace and tranquility. Her skin, as white as milk, seemed to radiate a gentle, holy luminescence. The Saintess's face was dreamlike, as beautiful as a goddess. No, she was a goddess. Deep in Philine's memory, she recalled how the Saintess would sprout wings as white as an angel's when she performed divine miracles. People said she was a deity walking the earth, a true child of God. Your Holiness, Philine said nervously. The mission at Thornwood Castle. I take full responsibility. The operation encountered unforeseen difficulties. Yes, I know, Ilya said softly. The calamity which, Tilly. I am truly sorry, Your Holiness. Philine's expression grew even more self-reproachful. I never expected such a powerful witch to be involved, nor that she would stand so unconditionally on the side of the Abraham family. Not only that, but the duplicitous Duke had also been a source of frustration. To think that old vampire would use his own death as a gambit to fool everyone. At some point, the plan had spiraled out of control. The Abraham family had now regained the Wigner Emperor's trust, and even if they publicized the secret treaty, it would be useless. It wouldn't stir up any trouble for them now. And, just as she said, she had to bear full responsibility for the failure. Not only was the secret envoy wiped out, but Bishop Lawrence, the spy they had painstakingly cultivated, had been obliterated into dust by that witch. Philine lowered her head in shame, ready to accept her punishment, even if it was death. But to her surprise, the Saintess smiled gently. She softly stroked Philine's hair. You said it yourself. They were unforeseen difficulties. You did all you could. This isn't entirely your fault. Philine looked up in astonishment, meeting the Saintess's gentle and slightly worried gaze. Overusing your divine arts, especially the highest-tier divine descent, can your body still handle it? Fighting that witch while using your body. It must have left you with many injuries. Have they all healed? Her pale golden eyes were like warm sunlight, her soft words soothing Philine's body and soul. Philine's nose tingled, and she finally couldn't hold back, lowering her head as her shoulders trembled like a lost child's. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Your Holiness. I failed your trust. There, Elia chuckled, wiping away her tears. Pull yourself together. Our great cause still needs your efforts. This won't do, will it? Philine shuddered. That was right. The Saintess had once said she would spread the holy light to every dark corner of the world, bringing happiness and order to a chaotic world. She couldn't let herself fall into despair. She had to gather her strength and continue to clear the path for the Saintess. She looked into the Saintess's clear eyes. Her Holiness was always so gentle, always so kind. On her journey, she had saved the suffering and brought hope to the people. She performed miracles and became their faith. She had also shown the way for a lost soul like herself. Therefore, at that thought, Philine's gaze became solemn and resolute. Your Holiness, I am ready for the next operation. Please give me your orders. Elia looked at her and breathed a sigh of relief. The next phase will focus on Wigner's capital, New Haven. You will need to change your appearance. Go find Father Lance. This time you must be cautious. Await my orders for further instructions. Feline nodded firmly, but the thought of going to New Haven brought someone else to mind, and her brow furrowed slightly. Although the calamity, which was a major reason for the failure of Thornwood Castle, I believe that man, Leo, played a role that cannot be underestimated. And when you fought the witch on the snow-covered mountain, Your Holiness, he used some unknown method to suppress the vampire ancestor. It's truly strange. After the failed mission, Feline had been secretly investigating Leo. Using Norscowl's intelligence network, the more she looked into him, the stranger he seemed. She couldn't find a single thing about his background. It was almost impossible. How could a person have no past? It was as if he had just appeared out of thin air 4 years ago. Even more bizarrely, his parents were listed on the official records, but no one had ever seen them. Who filed his residency? Who enrolled him in the academy? How did he acquire the property on Riverfront Road? The entire arrangement was like the work of an invisible hand in the shadows. Compared to this, the Sea's secret spies were amateurs. At first, Feline thought he was a chosen like herself, but then she made a disturbing discovery. Leo seemed to have been involved in many incidents, making his true purpose unclear, and his relationships with several women seemed extraordinary. From what Feline could see, the next Abraham Duke, the Empire's 5th princess, and even that calamity which would come out of nowhere all had deep ties to him. But if she considered him the core member of some mysterious organization, it all suddenly made sense. It sounded absurd, but the facts were right in front of her. He lives in New Haven. He will certainly interfere with our future plans. Your Holiness, perhaps we should prioritize eliminating him to prevent further complications? Initially, she had thought a chosen like him should be recruited into the Church of Holy Light, especially since the saintess herself had inquired about him. But now, she was more convinced than ever that this man could not be allowed to live. Feline waited silently for the saintess's response. Strangely, the saintess before her suddenly fell silent for a long moment. Puzzled, Feline looked up, only to be startled to find the saintess's gaze was empty. Those pale golden eyes had lost their usual warmth. They just stared at her quietly. It was almost terrifying. A storm raged in Philine's heart. Terrifying? No matter how she tried, she could not associate that word with the saintess. Yet, the reality was undeniable. The saintess was watching her with an indifferent stare, as if she was looking at her, but also thinking of something else through her. Your Holiness. Elia realized her mood had shifted. She raised the corners of her lips, once again revealing her signature gentle smile. Do not worry about him. I will deal with Leo personally. Feline breathed a sigh of relief. She hadn't expected the saintess to handle it herself. In that case, Leo certainly wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. After Feline departed, only Elia remained in the vast cathedral hall. She stood silently, and the space fell into a deathly quiet. A long time later, a laugh echoed through the hall. It was a bitter laugh. If only you had come back sooner. My light. This time, will you be able to stop me? I look forward to it. In the afternoon, at a cafe in the Whitechapel district, Leo sipped his coffee while gazing out the window. In the distance stood a building whose style was strikingly different from its surroundings. It had a steel frame and was constructed mainly of glass. Its transparent dome shimmered under the sunlight, like a crystal palace. That was the venue for the Industrial Exposition, the Crystal Palace itself. In an era like this, a massive building made entirely of glass was a true novelty. This marvel of architecture was a testament to the Wigner Empire's industrial might, making it the perfect exhibition hall. The entrance to the Crystal Palace was bustling with people and carriages. Leo watched patiently while waiting for Ophelia. Around 2 o'clock, the classic black luxury carriage pulled up to the cafe. A guard opened the door, and an expressionless Ophelia stepped out. Her eyes immediately found Leo, sitting leisurely by the window. He smiled and waved at her, then ordered another coffee. As soon as Ophelia sat down, she said irritably, "So you do know how to come back?" Seeing her stern face, Leo could only offer a sheepish grin. "Of course I know how to come back. There's no place like home." A faint smile touched Ophelia's lips. "You were supposed to be back last week, but you spent all that time getting cozy with your professor up north. I was starting to think you didn't want to come back at all." "That's not it." Leo looked wronged. "You know the situation? My professor just took over, and the family is full of troublemakers. It was pure chaos. I was helping, not whatever you're imagining." "Really?" Her pale eyes moved closer, staring at him without blinking. Leo forced himself not to think about the pleasant time he'd had with his professor and instead pictured the overworked Monica. He nodded solemnly. Really, I was incredibly busy. Huh, lies. Ophelia saw right through his fabrication. Leo's attempt to challenge the human lie detector had failed once again. It's uncanny, Leo grumbled internally, staring at her. How in the world did she develop this ability? If I weren't so busy myself, I wouldn't let you off the hook today. Just you wait for your punishment, she scoffed, then glanced at his hand. Where's my ring? Did you throw it away? Right here, right here. Leo quickly retrieved the antique ring from his dimensional pocket. Put it on, Ophelia commanded. All right, Leo slid it back on his finger. Don't think I can't control you just because the ring is broken. Ophelia snorted. Sooner or later, I'll force that witch to fix it. Then I'll watch you every single second of every single day and see if you still dare to go out and cheat. Leo thought silently. You'll probably be waiting forever because the witch is never going to fix it for you. Seeing the ring back on Leo's finger, Ophelia's unhappy expression finally softened. She sighed faintly. While you were gone, people have been causing trouble for me nonstop. I didn't even have anyone to share the burden with. She looked at Leo. I need your help. Leo nodded. Okay. There was no hesitation in his voice, and he didn't ask what the problem was. Ophelia's gaze softened even more. She blew on her hot coffee and said in a low voice, As you know, I was in charge of hosting the Sistun delegation. After their conspiracy in the north was exposed, I immediately prepared to arrest them, but one of them escaped. A shadow passed over Ophelia's eyes. A member of the council used this opportunity to impeach me, claiming my incompetence nearly endangered the capital and His Majesty. My father has now ordered me to capture the escaped delegate immediately. A council member wouldn't have the guts to impeach you on their own, Leo said, thinking of her two brothers. Ophelia nodded. It was William's man. William was the second prince. Leo had met him once before. The guy was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Since the second prince's faction was now openly slinging mud, the power struggle in the capital had clearly reached a fever pitch. It seemed Ophelia was right. She was in a lot of trouble. You don't need to help with matters of the court. Just help me find that fish that got away, Ophelia said. I can assign Captain Raymonds to you, and agents from the Bureau of Special Investigations can also assist. Leo grunted in agreement, then looked out the window at the Crystal Palace. I have a feeling they'll try to cause chaos in New Haven soon. That escaped delegate is a major liability. Ophelia frowned. What do you mean? Leo explained his theory that the sea might try to assassinate the king at the exposition. Those high-ranking Sistun officials are likely chosen, like Phylline. They have a high-tier divine art called Divine Descent, and the Elia of today is very powerful and very dangerous. Ophelia's eyes narrowed. My father, at the very least, shouldn't die at this critical juncture. She began to analyze the situation in the capital for him. The second prince controlled the city guard. Aside from the royal guard, which answered directly to the king, he commanded the largest military force in the city. He also had strong private ties to the military. With his current power, he was probably the one most eager to see King Charlton II dead. If father dies, William will seize control of the capital and have me and the third prince killed, Ophelia said, taking a delicate sip of coffee. Leo nodded. Although Ophelia had gained prominence in recent years, her power base was not as large as her brother's. She had always done her father's dirty work, like dealing with anomalies and handling the dragon tomb of Andius. All her authority came directly from the old king and was promptly revoked after each messy task was completed. Compared to the second prince, Ophelia's foundation was shaky, and her team wasn't deep enough. Leo couldn't help but think about how the old king had divided responsibilities among his children. The first prince assisted with governance, the second prince waged wars, the third prince handled the church, and the fifth princess managed special affairs. The original arrangement had been quite reasonable, with everyone supporting the popular first prince, acting as his right and left hands. Unfortunately, the recognized heir was dead. His death shattered the balance. Now, the old king's attitude was ambiguous, letting his remaining children fight among themselves. It was both a rebalancing act and a crucible. But Leo had a hunch. The capital's battle royale was about to enter its final phase. The circle was closing. We should immediately investigate the security risks at the exposition. Ophelia mused. If necessary, it would be best if father didn't attend. But if I express that idea, it might lower his opinion of me. He places great importance on this event. With war imminent, the arms deals at the expo are a top priority. The more Ophelia thought, the more frustrated she became. That damned pink-haired woman, what does she want? Has she really become that powerful? The court mages my father employs are also formidable. Are they just for show? Leo reminded her. On the mountain up north, she fought Tilly to a standstill while in her divine descent state. Oh, Ophelia said quietly. Then she really is powerful. Then, a hint of resentment colored her tone as she glanced at Leo. And it's all your fault. This isn't my fault, Leo said helplessly. Look, she's clearly not after me. Her ambition is for the sea to rule the world. Otherwise, she had plenty of chances to capture me at Thornwood Castle, and she didn't, did she? It's still your fault, Ophelia said faintly. Back during the wars in the Central Kingdoms, you never should have gone there, and you never should have saved her. If she had just died back then, none of this would be happening. Leo felt even more helpless. He hadn't wanted to go back then either. It was because of a mission. Who could have known that a lowly priestess from a remote backwater country would grow into such a formidable figure? God only knew what she had been up to these past 4 years. So about that, Leo tried to change the subject. Don't worry too much about catching the fugitive or the expo. If the king insists on going, then I'll attend the exhibition too. Do you need my help? Ophelia considered it. I could contact the organizers, see if I can get you in as a security officer. No need. Leo waved his hand. Too many people are watching you right now. Don't do it. I'll go under the academy's name. As an exhibitor. An exhibitor? Ophelia looked puzzled. At the mention of this, Leo smiled. The witch has been cooped up in her room all day working on that steam engine. I'll just give her a little nudge and drag her along with me. That could work. Ophelia nodded. Although she hated to admit it, having Tilly involved in this would make her feel strangely more at ease. After they finished talking, Ophelia prepared to leave. Thank you, she said with a smile as she stood up. Huh, so you're not scowling at me anymore? Guess I am useful, right? Now, it was Leo's turn to puff out his chest. Seeing his proud, pouty expression, Ophelia let out a laugh. She leaned in and gave him a light kiss. You're useful. The most useful. You're my big hero. Leo glanced at her. That's it. That little reward isn't nearly enough. Ophelia winked mischievously. Then wait for me to finish my work and come home. When I do, you'd better not be afraid of too much reward. Leo harumphed. Bring on. After Ophelia left the cafe with a smile, Leo took a tour of the Crystal Palace before heading back to the old mansion before sunset. Helena was in the back kitchen preparing dinner. When she saw her brother return, she proudly showed off the scrambled eggs with tomatoes she had just learned to make. Not bad, Leo gave his critique. Next time, add a tiny bit of sugar. It'll enhance the flavor. Oh, Helena, wearing an apron, nodded obediently. I didn't know there was a trick like that. Brother, you know so much. Leo was about to offer her a few more pointers on cooking when a violent explosion from upstairs shook the entire mansion. Helena covered her ears, staring up in terror. The witch's experiments. Have they started again? Leo looked up skeptically. If the mansion wasn't a containment sanctuary, he felt that blast would have leveled everything within a 500-meter radius. What in the world is she working on? Leo wondered as he walked up the stairs and knocked on Tilly's door. A long while after he knocked, Tilly finally opened the door. She looked at Leo with an embarrassed expression. You heard the explosion just now, didn't you? The witch smiled awkwardly. It's nothing, don't worry. Just a little experiment. Leo stepped into the room and silently surveyed the scene. The entire room was pitch black. Nearly all the furniture had been reduced to splinters, and the floor was so littered with debris there was nowhere to stand. This is a little experiment? Leo was stunned. The spot not far from him must have been ground zero. The all-metal steam engine had been melted into a puddle of iron by the intense heat. He turned back to Tilly, looking her up and down. Are you okay? I'm fine. Tilly pointed to the only piece of furniture still intact. The moment the explosion happened, I used a magic shield to protect myself and my most important alchemy station. So, what exactly are you researching? Leo had thought she was trying to improve the Magitech steam engine. Now, it looked more like a magic bomb. Seeing Leo's probing expression, Tilly smiled. I'm improving the steam engine's power output. This is my 6th prototype. I still have numbers 7 and 8 to go. There are more. Leo couldn't help but facepalm. Tilly chuckled. Don't worry. Your mansion is so sturdy, it's a natural laboratory. Research is always like this. A couple more failures, and I might just succeed. Leo wasn't worried about the mansion. He was worried he'd go deaf if Tilly kept blowing things up. He glanced toward the staircase. Helena was already traumatized by Tilly's little experiment, staring up with wide, fearful eyes, too scared to come any closer. Leo looked at Tilly and said helplessly, this is already the latest model developed by the Academy. Headmaster Danon is very satisfied with it. Is it still not good enough for you? Not good enough. Far from it. When the topic came up, Tilly's tone became agitated. Even the latest model is still so flimsy. No kick to it at all. I've always felt that a miraculous power like magic isn't being used to its full potential. So what's your plan? Leo watched her. The witch, high on her research, had a flushed face and a look of excited fanaticism that reminded him of her crazed state at the Divine Research Institute on the island. Although Gould's Magitech design is already very sophisticated, the final energy loss is still too great. Tilly pressed a finger to her smooth chin, her violet eyes glinting. So I've been thinking, can I optimize it further? Or maybe, can I just get rid of this boiler? Why do we have to boil water? Leo almost laughed. A phrase suddenly popped into his head. The essence of human civilization is boiling water and throwing rocks. After all, even in the nuclear age, it was all still about boiling water. Tilly walked over to her alchemy station and found a few standard Ethereum crystals. So I wanted to try directly converting the magic within the crystals into mechanical energy, ditching that stupid boiler. But it's not that simple, is it? Leo walked over too. The witch nodded with a troubled expression. Don't mind my room constantly exploding. I'm actually close to a breakthrough, she said with a sigh. But even if I succeed this way, I won't be able to achieve Gould's goal of creating a magitech industry. It can't be made cheap or standardized. Leo examined the tiny runes etched onto the Ethereum crystal. After so much time studying at Blackwood, he knew what they meant. Even if the witch succeeded, her invention would only be a highly unstable and unique handcrafted artifact, impossible to replicate. The standard Ethereum crystal in her hand was the result of Gould's compromises. It was both a mana battery and a runestone inscribed with the most basic Circle Zero spell, Boil. Gould had considered every spell imaginable, but only this seemingly useless one was the most compatible. Even then, it had taken him a long time to improve and simplify the spell structure to make it more lightweight. The old headmaster was truly a genius. Seeing Tilly's crestfallen face, Leo smiled and patted her shoulder encouragingly. You'll succeed with enough trial and error. Keep it up. When you figure it out, you'll be the great pioneer who kicks off the second Magitech industrial revolution. The Academy will have to erect a 50-meter-tall statue of you at the entrance, taller than the one of the God of Light in the cathedral. Tilly burst out laughing and waved her hand. I just want to make the world a better place. What use do I have for fame? Besides, I'm still a wanted fugitive in the Empire. What Academy would dare to build a statue of me? After their chat, Tilly's spirits were restored. She eagerly pulled Leo over to show off her various research notes. The old fossils and colleagues at the Order of Magical Arcanists were always dismissive of her research. Only Leo would understand the strange and wonderful ideas in her mind. Watching Leo's focused expression, Tilly's smile grew wider and more content. This was what it felt like to be perfectly in sync, intellectually and spiritually. After talking for a while, Leo almost forgot why he'd come. He finally told her his idea of bringing her work to the exposition. Tilly was so surprised she waved her hands dismissively. I haven't succeeded yet. A prototype is too dangerous. Good point. Leo silently recalled the force of the recent explosion. If that thing was on display at the expo and went off, he and Tilly would look less like exhibitors and more like assassins sent to kill the king. Do you have any other little inventions? Leo asked, curiously scanning her alchemy station. Anything that can be shown at the expo is fine. It's just a cover after all. Let me think. Tilly's eyes darted around as she rummaged through her dimensional pocket. What she pulled out next shocked Leo to his core. Ethereum crystal cluster bombs, high corruption alchemy potions, lethal plague toxins, soul-inhabited dark magic dolls. Put those back, put them back. Leo said, horrified. You walk around the house with this stuff every day. Oh, what's wrong? The witch looked innocent. It's fine. What are you afraid of? This pocket is perfectly safe. Don't you have anything slightly less dangerous? Leo was speechless. To be honest, her creations would probably trigger a military procurement frenzy, but that was a terrifying thought. Less dangerous. Tilly thought again, then casually conjured a suit of humanoid armor. How about this? This one is defensive. Leo was immediately captivated by the Magitech golem before him. The entire thing was made of metal and driven by Magitech power. The exposed brass, gears, and rivets gave it an immediate steampunk beauty. A steam knight. Leo circled it again and again, clicking his tongue in amazement. This is good, this is great. So we'll exhibit this? Tilly asked. I think it could use a few improvements. Leo rubbed his chin. Here, And here, slap 2 revolver machine guns on it, the kind that goes rat-a-tat-tat. Hey, why is the back empty? Add a 60mm smoothbore rapid-fire cannon. You're even more extreme than I am, Tilly said, exasperated. This is supposed to be for defense, to guard the Order's headquarters. The best defense is a good offense, Leo said with a grin. If you blow all the enemies to smithereens, you don't need to defend against them, right? True, Tilly nodded thoughtfully. And the design? I think it needs to be bigger. Leo continued to offer suggestions, sketching out a cool design for her on a piece of parchment. It has to be big. Bigger is better. Better is bigger. Tilly's eyes lit up as she looked at the parchment. She nodded enthusiastically. Bigger is better. Better is bigger. Leo looked at the awesome design on the paper, increasingly satisfied. After all, what boy doesn't love giant mechs? If this thing took a stroll down the streets of New Haven, it would be the coolest thing ever. Give me some time. The structure is simple, so it should be ready in time for the expo, Tilly said after a moment's thought. Then she asked, what should we call this machine? Leo grinned. Let's call it the Steam Gundam. 3 days passed in a flash. Tilly, with huge dark circles under her eyes, yawned as she knocked on Leo's door. After getting the green light from Headmaster Danton and filing the necessary paperwork, Tilly used a little magic to alter her appearance. The two of them were now official exhibitors at the Crystal Palace Exposition. The morning crowd was still sparse. Leo sat behind their display booth while the witch, who had been up for 3 straight nights, leaned against him and fell asleep. Listening to her soft snores, Leo looked at Tilly. It hadn't taken long for her new body to revert to its usual state of exhaustion. He was starting to think that dark circles and eye bags were the witch's true form. His gaze swept across the exhibition hall, which was filled with a dazzling array of new machinery. By 10 in the morning, the crowd had grown significantly. Industrialists flocked to the various exhibits, their voices a low hum of discussion and haggling. It was impossible to know how many major deals would be struck at this event. Of course, with war on the horizon, the focus of this year's expo was on military hardware. The piece Leo had brought was already attracting some attention. He hadn't brought out the ridiculously oversized Steam Gundam. The prototype's torso was still under construction in his backyard. The one on display was a scaled-down version with an added weapon system. He had bigger plans for the real one. Even so, it caught the eye of a high-ranking military official. But as soon as the official heard that the machine burned through 10 Ethereum crystals a minute, he turned and walked away, shaking his head and muttering, "The budget is tight. Can't afford it, can't afford it." Oomph. No taste at all. Tilly, who had woken up at some point, grumbled, watching the man's retreating back. Just wait until the fighting starts. You'll see how powerful it is then. Aside from a few military figures, their booth was practically deserted. Tilly pouted, closed her eyes, and went back to using Leo as a pillow. Well, you two look comfortable. A cool voice with a hint of sarcasm cut through the air. Leo looked up to see Ophelia in plain clothes. Hey, you're here too. Leo scooted over, making room for her. Have a seat. I'd rather not. Ophelia glanced at Tilly, who was sprawled over Leo, and poked her. Do you think this is your home? Sleeping at the exposition? Don't bother me. I'm tired. Tilly knew it was Ophelia, but couldn't be bothered to move. She continued to hug her large human pillow, even wiggling into a more comfortable position before drifting off again. Ophelia was completely helpless against Tilly's shamelessness, her expression growing colder and darker. Leo suddenly felt that for every force, there was an equal and opposite force. He gave an awkward laugh. The witch pulled 3 all-nighters to get ready for this. Cut her some slack. Ophelia huffed and sat down beside Leo, crossing her arms. I've been busy for the last 3 days, too, checking the exhibition hall for security risks. I'm tired too, you know. Leo squeezed her shoulder, rubbing it for a moment. Seeing her frosty expression thaw slightly, he smiled and asked, Your father is still insisting on coming? The security here must be top-notch then, right? He's definitely coming. Who would dare defy him? Ophelia's eyes scanned the surroundings. All exhibits are up to code, and dangerous explosives are strictly controlled. The origin of every single Ethereum crystal can be traced to a legitimate source. So far, there are no security breaches. What about security personnel? Leo asked. Ophelia continued. He's very protective of his own life. On the day he attends, he'll be accompanied by numerous powerful individuals. Director Fredericks of the BSI, Adrian, the current head of the Order of the Holy Edict, and Hawkins, the chief royal mage, along with their subordinates and the most elite royal guard. Leo considered the 3 names. They were indeed heavyweights, covering everything from magic to divine arts. With those three top-tier experts providing close protection, he couldn't even imagine how the old king could die. And that wasn't even factoring in himself, Ophelia, and Tilly, especially the god-tier mage, Tilly. After he voiced these thoughts, a cold smile appeared on Ophelia's face. To be honest, under these circumstances, I'm also very curious to see what card Leo will play. As they talked, Leo's gaze periodically swept across the Crystal Palace. Even though Ophelia made it sound indestructible, he still felt uneasy, sensing that something was wrong. Just as he was surveying the area, a serious-looking Captain Raymonds hurried toward them. Leo, Captain, what is it? Leo looked at him, realizing it had been a long time since they'd last seen each other. It's Inspector now, Ophelia corrected with a slight smile. He's a chief inspector. Don't call him captain anymore. Really? Leo glanced at Raymonds' badge and saw that he had indeed been promoted, and skipped a rank at that, making him a mid-level leader at NHBD headquarters. Leo looked at Ophelia. Captain Raymonds' meteoric rise was undoubtedly part of some plan of hers. Of course, Raymonds himself was probably thrilled. With his experience and achievements, he was long overdue for a promotion. Your Highness, please don't tease me, Captain Raymonds said with a weary smile, then turned to Leo. Just call me Captain. I'm used to it. No need for formalities. Any new leads? Ophelia asked directly. For the past few days, Captain Raymonds had been keeping an eye out for the escaped Sistan delegate. He immediately nodded. One of my informants has gone missing. The last message he sent back said he saw the Sistan agent. Leo, I need your help with the investigation. It involves an anomaly, and that's your specialty. Understood. Leo's expression turned serious, not just because of the missing person case Raymonds mentioned, but also because of the system notification that had just popped up. New chapter updated. Where Holy Light falls save point updated. Captain Raymonds lowered his voice and laid out the whole story. My informant had been undercover for a long time in an underworld gang, the Night Ravens. 3 days ago, he discovered that the Sistan delegate was secretly in contact with the gang, so he rushed to get the intel out. The captain shook his head. Unfortunately, after he sent that message, we lost all contact. I suspect he was exposed and silenced by the gang. An underworld gang? Leo frowned, thinking that the quality of his enemies seemed to be getting lower and lower. He was used to dealing with anti-human cults, dark wizard organizations conducting evil god-making experiments, or mysterious vampire clans. This time, it was a common street gang. Knowing Leo's capabilities, Captain Raymonds quickly added, don't underestimate them. The gang's leader, Fry, is a powerful anomaly, and he's on the most wanted list. Rumor has it his methods are exceptionally cruel and brutal. He glanced at Ophelia before continuing. And the reason we planted an informant was because we suspect the gang is actually a front for an underground anomaly resistance organization that's been hiding for years. These groups have always plotted to overthrow the Empire and have caused several major disturbances in the past. So I think their secret contact with the sea is exactly what you and Her Highness suspect, a plot to assassinate His Majesty at the exposition. An anomaly resistance organization. Leo mused. He knew there were many such groups, large and small, scattered throughout the Empire. It was a direct consequence of King Charlton II's massive purge of anomalies years ago. There used to be many anomaly families like the Abrahams, but now they had all but vanished. The ones who survived mostly harbored a deep-seated hatred for the Empire and humanity. The gang leader Raymonds was talking about had probably gone underground during that time. But Leo was more curious about something else. You said this gang leader is powerful and on the wanted list. What's his rank right now? Number 32. The captain's expression grew even more serious. He made a point to add, from our experience at the department, anyone in the top 50 of that list needs to be handled with extreme caution. Oh, is that so? Leo silently glanced at Tilly, who was just starting to stir from her nap. He couldn't help but think, the number 1 fugitive on your list is sitting right here. Compared to the infamous Calamity, which, Tilly, that number 32 punk, was completely out of his league. What is it? Tilly rubbed her eyes, yawning as she looked at Captain Raymonds. Hey, who's this? He looks familiar. Ophelia's mouth twitched. She knew just how desperately the NHPD, the BSI, and even the church wanted to catch this witch. Seeing her casually strolling around New Haven always struck her as absurd. I'm Raymonds, an old friend of Leo's. Captain Raymonds looked at her, then shot a suspicious glance at Leo. How is it that this kid keeps surrounding himself with more and more women? Oh, hello, Tilly said with a nod. I'm Tilly. A pleasure, Raymonds replied politely. An hour later, in a noisy, dilapidated tavern in downtown New Haven, Captain Raymond's pushed a mug of dark ale toward Leo. According to my informant, the owner of this tavern is a member of the Night Ravens, the captain said in a low voice. I have a plan. Leo ordered 2 glasses of juice, handing one to Ophelia and the other to Tilly, who were both in disguise. Tilly didn't seem to mind the grimy, chaotic environment and started sipping her drink. Ophelia, however, sniffed the rim of her glass with disgust and didn't take a single sip. I suppose a high and mighty princess looks down on a place like this, Tilly said with a mocking smile. If you keep acting so uptight, someone's going to figure out who you are. I'm not. I've been to downtown before. Ophelia shot back with a glare, but still refused to drink. Leo smiled at her. It was true that a person's aura was hard to hide. Even in her more common clothes, Ophelia stood out. Leo felt she could make drinking tap water look elegant. Ophelia noticed the stare she was getting from around the room and looked at Leo, embarrassed. Is my disguise not very convincing? Can the captain's plans still work? Air. Captain Raymond was at a loss for words. His original plan was to secretly investigate the tavern owner, tailing him with Leo to find the resistance group's secret hideout. But who would have thought that the moment Princess Ophelia saw Ms. Tilly accompanying Leo, she would insist on coming along too. And who was he to deny the princess? It's fine. This is even better, Leo said with a grin. I have a plan too. Simpler and more direct than the captain's. He was here to cause trouble. The leering gazes from the surrounding patrons were no longer subtle. 3 drunken thugs stumbled over, and Leo caught a foul whiff of cheap booze. Never thought I'd see such pure and pretty little things in a dump like this. The leader slurred, swaying on his feet and holding a wooden mug with a wicked grin. What's the fun in drinking juice? Come on, let Big Brother buy you 2 a real drink. Ophelia glared at the thugs with disgust, her eyes turning ice cold. Tilly, meanwhile, just leaned on the table, sipping her juice, completely unconcerned by the unfolding scene. So you like to drink, do you? Leo sneered. The moment the thug reached out, Leo moved like lightning, dislocating both of his arms. Then he dragged the screaming, struggling man to the bar, grabbed him by the hair, and shoved his mouth onto the tap of a beer keg. He flipped the switch, and golden ale gushed into the thug's stomach. Leo held the man, who was nearly unconscious from pain, and force-fed him until he was bloated. Captain Raymond stared at the thug's round belly, then watched as Leo proceeded to beat him senseless. The man's pathetic cries mixed with the sound of him vomiting. Suddenly, Raymond's lost his thirst for beer. As Leo dealt with the 3 thugs, the entire tavern erupted into chaos. The bartender ran to get the owner. A moment later, a decently dressed, overweight, middle-aged man appeared, leveling a double-barreled shotgun at Leo. You son of a bitch, starting shit in my place. You got a death wish? Do you have any idea who I... Before he could pull the trigger, Leo appeared at his side like a phantom. He swung his cane, and with a sickening crunch of metal, the shotgun barrels were bent into a useless U-shape. The tavern owner stared at his ruined weapon, his face paling. He finally realized he had messed with the wrong person. He turned to run, but the moment he took a step, his fat body froze, completely immobile. Dark magic, marionette hex. Tilly walked up to Leo with a smile, then glanced at the other patrons trying to flee. With a casual wave of her hand, the tavern door slammed shut as if bolted by an unseen force. No matter how hard they pushed, it wouldn't budge. The tavern filled with terrified screams. Captain Raymond was stunned. This is how you conduct an investigation? But an even bigger shock was yet to come. When Leo dragged the tavern owner into a back room, a dark and evil power began to envelop the area. Raymond watched as the owner's eyes went vacant, his mouth opening and closing unnervingly. The leader of our Night Ravens, Boss Fry. He doesn't usually show himself to outsiders. He has 10 secret gathering points, all in a new Haven sewer system. He should be in the north side of the city right now. That place is good for storing a lot of weapons. Yes, I can take you there. The tavern owner, like a puppet on strings, spilled crucial information the NHBD had never been able to obtain. A wave of joy washed over Captain Raymond. I'll call for backup right now. 10 minutes later, by a sewer grate not far from the tavern, Captain Raymond's subordinate, Officer Leon, hurried over. Inspector, are we moving in already? I thought you said not to alert them. Captain Raymond immediately waved his hand. Move in, move in. Today is the perfect opportunity to catch this so-called resistance organization. Get the precincts from the 3 adjacent districts to coordinate with us. Yes, sir. Officer Leon nodded quickly. Leo lifted the sewer grate and glanced at the ecstatic Captain Raymond. Captain, you don't need to come with us. We'll meet you at the rendezvous point as planned. Got it. Captain Raymond's was on the verge of another major commendation and couldn't contain his smile. Leo, I really owe you for this one. He looked over at Tilly. I never knew there was a method like that. To make a suspect confess directly. If we could do that, sigh, we wouldn't have to kiss the asses of those stuck-up jerks at BSI anymore. I've got it, Raymond said excitedly. Miss, how about we hire you as an external consultant for the NHBD? You can name your price. Huh, well, Tilly blinked, instinctively looking at Leo. Captain, don't even think about it, Leo said with a weary smile. She's not someone you can recruit. Ophelia also felt a laugh bubbling up. Tilly was the #1 fugitive on the most wanted list. Hiring a wanted criminal as a consultant? Raymond's must have been tired of his career. What's wrong with that? The captain asked Leo, confused. Are you worried we can't offer a matching salary? We can. I can file a request with my superiors. If you file that request, the next time I see you will be in a prison cell, Leo said, exasperated, pushing him away. Go on, go on. We'll see you at the rendezvous. You'll get your big bust. Fine. Captain Raymond's reluctantly left the area. But as he walked away, a thought slowly began to dawn on him. Wait a minute. That young lady who used witchcraft, what was her name again? It was something like Tilly? That name sounds really familiar. Wait, who? Captain Raymond's eyes widened. After Captain Raymond's left, only Leo, Tilly, and Ophelia remained by the open sewer. A strange odor wafted up from below. Ophelia clutched her chest, the smell making her want to retch. This was an experience she'd never had in her life. She had never imagined a day would come when she would have to crawl into a sewer. Leo and Tilly exchanged a look. Leo patted Ophelia's back worriedly and said softly, How about we two go down, and you wait up here? Tilly looked at Ophelia's pale face and smiled mischievously. Yeah, that's right. A sewer is so filthy, it's no place for you. Leo, and I can handle it. You can just wait at the rendezvous point and take the credit. No. Ophelia bit her lip. The thought of this, which and Leo fighting side by side, with only her missing from the picture, filled her with frustration. Every time something happened, Leo only thought to ask her for help. He never thought of her. Although fine, Tilly's power was indeed stronger, but she could be useful too. She had been practicing with the Dreamlands for so long. At that thought, Ophelia snorted self-righteously. This concerns an assassination attempt on my father and the fate of New Haven, even the entire Wigner Empire. How could I possibly stay out of it? Then she braced herself and prepared to jump in. Hey, wait, you're actually going to jump? Tilly laughed, quickly stopping her. What, you look down on me? Ophelia pinched her nose, her voice coming out like a mosquito's buzz from the overwhelming stench. What are you talking about? Tilly shook her head helplessly, then cast 2 spells on each of them. This is a cleaning spell and a surrounding aura. Tilly sniffed her sleeve, catching a pleasant floral scent. She nodded in satisfaction. I'm not dumb enough to go in there unprotected. I never get that smell out. Ophelia finally breathed a sigh of relief. Tilly chuckled, then threatened. So don't provoke me down there, or I'll make your spells disappear in an instant. Ophelia's face changed. Leo never expected his adventuring party would consist of these two, the most incompatible pair imaginable. And so, the trio's awkward journey into the sewer began. After descending to the bottom, Leo cast a simple circle one-light spell, revealing a deep and wide city sewer system. It was incredibly spacious, wide enough for 5 people to walk abreast, with raised walkways. A subterranean river flowed swiftly below the steps, keeping their shoes dry. New Haven's sewer system was far larger and more complex than imagined. The city received a lot of rainfall, so the system was primarily for drainage to prevent flooding. It was more like an underground river than a cesspool filled with filth. Of course, that depended on which part of the city they were under. Leo silently prayed they wouldn't encounter any of the cities. Special districts. Wow, it's so big down here. This was Tilly's first time in a place like this. No wonder all the sewer rat organizations hide out here. As the 3 walked on, kerosene lamps began to appear on the tunnel walls. Further ahead, they could hear the faint murmur of human conversation. Leo extinguished his light spell, and they proceeded with lighter steps. Ahead was a junction of several tunnels, opening into a vast cavern-like space. Torches flickered, and many people holding them were patrolling back and forth. They're all anomalies, Tilly whispered in Leo's ear. Leo nodded. It was now night outside, and the pitch-black environment was perfect for stealth. He melted into the shadows. Night Stalker. The night belongs to the Bloodkin. Moving in darkness greatly increases stealth and agility, making detection difficult. In an instant, Leo slipped into the large chamber. He hid in the darkness, quietly listening to their conversation. Is Boss Fry really going through with it? I just don't trust that shady character, even if they did provide all these weapons. What choice do we have? We've been hiding for so long, all for this day. Damn humans. Damn human emperor. True. Besides, Boss Fry can still summon. Chill. Don't speak his name. Hidden in the darkness, Leo crept closer to the gang members. From their conversation, he confirmed what the captain had said. This group was more than just an underworld gang. They were planning something big, even summoning some entity that sounded incredibly powerful. When their chatter yielded no more useful intelligence, Leo, using his Night Stalker ability, moved with silent, agile speed behind one of the members. Every high-level vampire is a natural master assassin, and Leo was no exception. His blood-red blade flashed, slitting the man's throat and taking him down with ease. The second and third followed. Their perception was clearly higher. Perhaps they sensed the cold, killing intent. The hair on their necks stood up, and they spun around. They were met with a grim face materializing from the darkness. The phantom-like Leo looked like a ghost. Enemy, they choked out, raising their guns. But before the word left their lips, two heads with wide, staring eyes were neatly severed from their shoulders, landing on the ground with a dull thud. After swiftly eliminating 5 gang members, Leo deliberately left one alive. The last man stared in horror at the now visible Leo. He tried to fire a warning shot, but after Leo knocked the gun from his hands, he turned and fled deeper into the sewers. Leo watched him go. The man ran on all fours, his body hunched over, moving with incredible speed. But he didn't get far. The witch, who had long been lying in wait, made her move. Tilly flickered in front of him in an instant. With a simple gesture, the man froze in place. By the time Leo and Ophelia walked over, the gang member, caught in the dark magic, had vacant eyes and a slack jaw, like a puppet. If you have questions, ask them now, Tilly reminded Leo. This trick is really useful, Ophelia remarked, feeling it was far superior to her lie detection ability. She asked curiously, can this dark magic make anyone talk? Not always. It depends on the target's willpower, Tilly said, glancing at Leo. While I controlled him back then, I could only control his body, not his thoughts. Oh, Ophelia nodded in understanding, then smiled at Leo. In that case, never mind. Otherwise, I might have wanted to learn it. A chill went down Leo's spine. What would you learn that for? Isn't your mind reading enough for you? I never said I'd use it on you, Ophelia said with a sweet smile. Why so nervous? Feeling guilty. Leo scoffed. What do I have to be guilty about? Learn it if you want. He rolled his eyes and turned his attention back to the gang member, beginning his interrogation in a low voice. How do you plan to assassinate the Emperor? And what is this thing your boss Fry wants to summon? After he asked, the gang member began to tremble uncontrollably. He. The man didn't answer. It seemed that while the dark magic compelled him to speak, his subconscious was filled with terror and resistance. Answer honestly. Tilly's voice turned cold as she increased the power of the spell. Arg. The gang member clutched his head, writhing in agony. He finally spoke. Ghouls. It's ghouls. Ghouls. Leo and Ophelia exchanged a look. What's the big deal about summoning a ghoul? Ophelia frowned at him. Does it have a name? Tilly increased the pressure. The gang member moaned, his mind a fog, and finally uttered a name. Mordigin. The Ghoul King. Tilly released the marionette hex. The gang member collapsed to the ground, his eyes still vacant even after he regained consciousness, looking like a catatonic patient. Oh, sorry, Tilly said apologetically. Too much force. I broke his brain. That name sounds familiar, she said, looking at Leo and Ophelia. The Ghoul King? Another outer god. Could the entire Night Ravens gang be made up of ghouls? Ophelia's brow furrowed. Leo was quite knowledgeable about anomalies. He nodded. The ones I killed were indeed ghoul hybrids. Even so, summoning an outer god of that level is no easy task, Ophelia said doubtfully. There are plenty of anomalies in the world. We'll find out when we get to their lair and catch their boss, won't we? Tilly said dismissively. Maybe we'll even catch that delegate. The mysterious person they mentioned who provided the weapons must be from the sea. After a brief discussion, Leo decided to move immediately. He approached one of the corpses and studied its features. His own body and face began to slowly ripple and shift. Soon, he had transformed into the dead man's exact likeness. After changing into his clothes, the disguise was perfect. Helena's shape-shifting talent was ideal for impersonation. For Tilly, who commanded a host of strange and powerful dark magics, disguise was even simpler. She merely chanted a short spell, and without even needing to change clothes, her appearance completely transformed into that of another gang member. There, that should be convincing enough, she said with satisfaction. Let's go. Wait. Leo looked at the bewildered Ophelia. What about her? What does she do? What? Ophelia, you can't do it. Ophelia opened her mouth, instinctively retorting, Of course I can. Who said I can't? As she spoke, she began to draw on the power of the dreamlands to bend reality. She held out her palm, and the entire environment began to warp and ripple. The sound of the flowing water grew louder. Whoa, that won't work. Tilly quickly stopped her. She glanced down the tunnels. You're making way too much noise. You'll be discovered instantly. And I've heard that ghouls are drawn to the dreamlands. You'll be a walking, glowing beacon down here. Then what am I supposed to do? Ophelia said, frustrated. I told you not to come down here, but you insisted. Now you're a liability, aren't you? Tilly taunted with a mischievous grin. Ophelia huffed, her expression sullen. As much as she hated to admit it, her abilities were not suited for this kind of situation, especially not for stealth and infiltration. All right, time is short. Leo saw right through Tilly's little game and sighed. The amazing witch has so many magic items. Don't you have anything for disguise? Just give it to her already. Tilly giggled. Fine. She rummaged through her dimensional pocket for a moment and handed Ophelia a metal mask. Wear this. It's inscribed with a high-level transformation spell. It lasts a long time. You had this the whole time and didn't bring it out? Ophelia grumbled, taking the mask. If I brought it out earlier, how could I have seen you get flustered? Tilly said with a smile. Remember, including the time I sealed your ancestor, you owe me another favor now. You witch. Ophelia's eyes narrowed. What do you want? Why Tilly's excitement flared. Build a beautiful new world with me, of course. Let me tell you, I have a plan. Leo, getting a headache, cut off the witch's proselytizing and physically dragged her back. That's enough. Let's get a move on. The trio continued forward and soon found another massive space where multiple tunnels converged. It must have been a hub in New Haven's sewer system, but now it served as the gang's stronghold. By the dim light, Leo saw a large number of gang members, along with stockpiles of weapons on both banks, wrapped in tarps and wax paper. The quantity of arms was staggering, enough to equip a small army. Beyond that, piled in the darkness were countless corpses. They were in an advanced state of decay, but strangely, there was no foul smell. This caught Leo's attention. He suspected the bodies were preserved by some form of dark magic, to be used as components in a summoning ritual. It was a classic ghoul move. Hearing the footsteps of Leo's group, a guard immediately raised his gun. Who's there? Stop. Don't shoot. It's me. Leo raised his hands, running toward them with a panicked look on his face. Dick, what are you three doing here? The man looked at Leo suspiciously, but didn't lower his weapon. It's bad. Real bad. Leo looked back over his shoulder in terror, as if something horrible was chasing them. There are 3 enemies outside, a man and 2 women. They're powerful supernaturals. They killed all our guys. Ophelia and Tilly nodded vigorously, their faces masks of fear. What? The gang members tensed up, their expressions becoming alert. Leo said urgently, I think they're from the Bureau of Special Investigations. It's an emergency. Report to Boss Fry quick. Got it. A squad leader in the gang started barking orders. You, go check it out, confirm the situation. As for you, Dick, you're with me. Leo kept his head down and followed the squad leader, who was apparently taking him to the boss. The large open area was cluttered with weapons and corpses. In the distance stood a clean-looking tent. As the squad leader led Leo toward it, he glanced back. What are their abilities? How do you know they're from the BSI? It was just a guess. Leo shook his head repeatedly. I didn't get a clear look at their powers. It was too dark. Before I knew it, everyone was dead. I just ran for my life. You didn't even see them clearly? The man slowed his pace, studying Leo's expression with suspicion. If they were that powerful, how did the 3 of you get out alive? Who knows? Leo replied casually, scanning his surroundings. There weren't many people around the tent. Most were guarding the weapons and bodies. A team had already been dispatched to investigate his false report. Wait, the squad leader suddenly realized something was wrong. He stopped walking. What nonsense are you talking about? How could you not see in the dark? He stared at Dick, whose expression was no longer panicked, and his eyes widened in realization. He was about to shout, but in an instant, Leo was behind him, locking him in a brutal chokehold. The squad leader's eyes rolled back in his head as he was strangled into silence, his mouth foaming. After dragging the body into the shadows, Leo once again used Night Stalker to merge with the darkness. The entire hideout was in disarray because of the alarm, but the area around the tent remained quiet. Leo had been about to signal the witch to storm the tent and capture Fry, but the appearance of a figure caught his attention. It was a mysterious, slender woman in a hooded robe. She looked toward the tunnel Leo had come from, watched for a moment, then hurried into the tent. Leo crept closer to the tent and listened in on the conversation. "Don't worry. So what if they found us? As long as it's not that Frederick from the BSI, anyone who comes here will die. No one can catch me." The voice was rough and arrogant. This must be the Night Raven's boss, the number 32 on the wanted list. The woman's voice was annoyed. "The Synopsis plan must succeed. Our methods absolutely cannot be exposed before then. Find a way to move your base of operations immediately." "What a pain. Moving all these weapons will take a huge effort." The woman's laugh was cold. "The weapons don't matter, but you must protect the bodies I brought. They are essential for the ritual." "Oomph. I know." Leo frowned as he listened. So the bodies had been brought by her. This raised two red flags. An outside agent managing to move so many corpses past New Haven officials meant there had to be an inside connection. It reminded him of the traitorous Bishop Lawrence. Perhaps the mole was within the Order of the Holy Edict. An organization like that could certainly store bodies without raising suspicion. The other strange thing was that the method for summoning the Ghoul King came not from the Ghoul Gang itself, but from the Sea of Sistan, the supposed bastion of holy light. Inside the tent, Fry continued, "I've read the Codex of Ghouls you brought. Now you can tell me the rest of the plan. How are we supposed to get away clean during the chaos? That's my main concern." "You can rest assured on that point," the woman said confidently. "The moment the Emperor dies, the War of Succession will begin. No one will care about rats like you. The Empire will soon fracture, and at that time, our Saintus will use the opportunity to rule this country, letting the holy light shine in every corner." "Enough, enough," Fry interrupted impatiently. "I've heard that 1,000 times. What do I care about your Saintus' ambitions? I'm just doing this for my people." "But this is for your people." At the mention of the Saintus, the woman's tone became fervent and fanatical. "The Saintus has promised to build a nation where no anomaly will be discriminated against. Everything you're doing is for a better future." "Give me a break." Fry scoffed. "And you believe that crap? The sea has been slaughtering anomalies for 1,000 years. Don't take me for a fool. I'm only working with people like you because those bastards on the surface have left me with no other choice." Chapter 300. "Believe what you want." The woman's voice was filled with disappointment. "I suppose it's true. Wretched things like you, hiding underground, could never comprehend the Saintus' vision and ideals. In that case, just focus on your task." Fry suddenly asked, "I'm curious about something. Since you so easily gave me this Codex of Ghouls, does that mean you've been in contact with other anomaly resistance groups?" His tone grew increasingly suspicious. "Let's see. Werewolves? Vampires? Or even Shoggoths? Are we just one of the cards in your deck?" This was the answer Leo wanted. He listened quietly, waiting for the woman to speak. But the tent fell strangely silent. Leo frowned, instinctively leaning closer. Just then, a clawed hand covered in black fur ripped through the tent and swiped at his throat. Startled, Leo reacted instantly, dodging the attack. His body flashed backward, leaving a bloody afterimage before he once again melted into the darkness. A vampire? Fry charged out of the tent, frowning as he scanned the darkness. He was all too familiar with that aura. I wonder how much he heard. The Sistan agent's eyes narrowed as she scanned the area warily. "Fry, get rid of him now." "I know." Fry let out an inhuman roar, bearing a set of vicious fangs. From within Night Stalker, Leo carefully observed the gang leader. He wore a flat cap, his posture somewhat stooped, and his arms were unnaturally long, tipped with sharp claws. "Come out. Why are you hiding?" Fry roared, his body swelling rapidly. His clothes tore apart to reveal bloated, pale gray muscle and matted black fur. In his ghoul form, he sneered and lunged toward a spot in the darkness. "You think you're the only creature of the night?" He had not only found Leo's hiding spot, but his speed was like a cannonball. Leo was forced to block with a magic shield. With a screeching sound, Leo was pushed back a step. The creature couldn't break his defense, but its strength was incredible. Fry snarled, tearing at Leo's magic shield like a rabid dog. Leo glanced at the Sistan agent. Realizing this intruder was a serious threat, she was backing away, trying to blend into the chaotic crowd and escape. But no matter where she hid, she couldn't escape Leo's mark. After tagging her location for his team, Leo gave a cold command. Get her! Their primary objective was to capture this woman. Ophelia knew it was her time to act. A bizarre, twisting ripple emanated from her, distorting the air. In an instant, the ground shook and stone walls erupted from the floor, blocking off all the branching sewer tunnels. The Syston agent was stunned, clearly not realizing it was an illusion, not magic. She screamed, Fry, cover me. Fry knew he couldn't let her be captured. He abandoned his attack on Leo and charged toward her with incredible speed. Tilly's gravity magic followed immediately. All the gang members were simultaneously crushed to the ground by an invisible force, unable to even fire a single shot. The powerful crowd control from his two allies shocked Fry. He roared, shielding the agent with his massive body. The woman pulled an item from her robes. Leo's sharp eyes recognized it as a precious teleportation runestone. Leo immediately moved to stop her. If she escaped, the mission would be a near-total failure. He needed to learn Elia's entire plan from this woman. But just as Leo and Tilly unleashed their spells, the underground space was flooded with a brilliant light. The Syston agent did something strange. She didn't teleport away. Instead, she unleashed a high-tier divine art, judgment, piercing Fry's throat with a radiant spear of light. It was a divine spell devastating to all anomalies. The leader of the ghoul group, the 32nd on the most wanted list, clutched the bloody hole in his neck in disbelief, his gaze filled with rage and confusion. What are you doing? Scarlet blood gushed out, making his voice a hoarse, ugly rasp. You, damn! His massive body crumpled to the ground. The Syston agent watched him fall, her face impassive. What's this? Infighting. Tilly's marionette Hex was now in range. She walked forward and effortlessly took control of the agent's body. She's silencing him, Ophelia said, approaching to examine the ghoul leader. His eyes were gray and cloudy. All life had fled. Silencing him, Tilly waved her hand, and the agent's body stiffly extended its arms, ready to be tied. What's the point of silencing him? He's just a pawn to create chaos. This Syston woman is the important one, right? To kill the person who knows the most secrets at such a critical moment. Ophelia's eyes narrowed. It means she isn't worried about leaking information herself, so she prioritized eliminating the other risk. How was that possible? Tilly was confident in her dark magic. Even if her will is strong, I have plenty of ways to torture her. The moment her will breaks, I'll have my chance. Tilly, I don't think that's what Ophelia means, Leo said. After seeing her kill Fry so decisively, he also had a bad feeling. Really? Tilly was unconvinced. She immediately began manipulating the agent, eager to prove her skills. The agent's eyes fluttered, and her mouth opened slightly, like a puppet's. See? Tilly smiled, but her smile didn't last. The agent's next words made Tilly freeze. The agent forced a stiff smile and uttered a bizarre sentence. Tilly, your magic has become more and more refined. You truly are the most talented mage in the world. That tone was completely wrong for the Syston agent. It was as if she had become someone else. Her eyes then shifted rigidly to Leo, and a soft voice emerged. Leo, it's been 4 years. Have you missed me? You're. Tilly stared at her, stunned. Elia. Leo's face darkened. He never thought their reunion after 4 years would be like this. It's me. Elia smiled gently, but the stiffness of the host body made the expression all the more grotesque. A miscalculation. Ophelia's expression was just as grim. I suspect every member of the delegation is a chosen. You've possessed her body, so she can't reveal any information. Clever, Elia said approvingly. Perhaps you should join my advisory council, Your Highness. I have a position reserved for you all at the sea. Huh, who'd want it? Ophelia said coldly, getting right in her face. Do you really think you can win, you crazy woman? I'm reporting to my father immediately. You won't succeed in throwing this country into chaos. Elia just smiled faintly, seemingly unconcerned. Elia, this is just one part of your plan, isn't it? Leo stared at her. The Codex of Ghouls was something your sea confiscated during the old purges, right? You've given other dark grimoires to other anomaly resistance groups in Wigner, haven't you? Elia watched Leo silently, her gaze lingering for a long time, as if savoring the moment of being with him. Finally, she didn't answer his question. Instead, she said wistfully, since our whole family is here, I have an idea. Why don't we retrace our steps from 4 years ago? Let's finish the journey that was cut short. What nonsense are you spouting now? Tilly looked at her, annoyed. She waved her hand impatiently, and the agent's body stiffly followed her. I don't believe she can occupy this body forever. Let's go. We're taking her back to the mansion. We'll see what trouble she can stir up there. Ophelia's gaze was dark and intense as she stared at Elia. She never thought this woman would walk right into their trap. If that was the case, she was going to enjoy this interrogation. On the way back, Elia offered no resistance. She just silently watched Leo's back, her gaze making the hair on his skin stand up.